All right. How you doing, Moff? You can just unmute yourself there, that little monkey at the bottom.
Yes,
So,
sir.
okay, welcome to the Rocstedi podcast, episode 27 with Moff, where we go into the red pill theory, something that I don't quite fully understand, but I have some sort of understanding from sort of the archaic days back from the PUA days, I'll say, so to speak there, Moff. So, thanks for coming to the show. First time here on Fireside. Excuse my voice a little bit. It was one of my best buddies' birthdays last night. I'm slightly hungover and slightly losing my voice. So giving it the best shot in my morning here anyway. But how have you been?
Good, man. I have no complaints. I appreciate you having me on.
I'm going to switch on video while we got a chance here. So
Follow you.
just trying to figure it out. Turn on video, and that's for me and for yourself here as well. Hang on. Invite to video mode. There we go. Should accept and it should be good. There we go. Sweet. To go. Thanks for joining, man. Yeah, first time going live on a camera for you. You do that on YouTube a little bit yourself already.
I do it on YouTube a little bit. This is the first time that I've used my first and last name. I guess when I signed up, that's what it was. And so the jig is up, I guess. So if anybody wants to come after me after the show, I guess you guys will know how to find.
So the claps and all that stuff come through from the audience reactions as they come through, laughs, claps, all that sort of stuff. So if you hear those noises, it's not my soundboard. Yeah, man, not a drama. I think we could have found you on Instagram anyway with your name.
Yeah, but I think I linked it already on Stereo, but this makes it a little, I make people jump through hoops if they want to try to find me and track me down. But,
sure.
Eventually it all comes back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so we're going to blur his name out, ladies and gentlemen, after this show. Just joking, but here we go. All right, so thanks for joining us today, man. The red pill. Now, listen, I've booked shows over this last year since we've been on Stereo, different subjects, controversial subjects along the way, all that sort of stuff. But never have I had the sort of responses I've had since I posted that post on Instagram, man. I've had people almost like hate mail coming to me because I'm getting someone with the red pill theory in a podcast and thinking that I'm completely aligned with this. And I can't say that I am. I'm curious to know what the ins and outs are of it. I don't fully understand it. It doesn't seem for all men, especially for ladies as well, like this nice, welcoming sort of theory for guys and girls to live happily ever after together. It seems quite one way for men, if I'm honest, right? So I want to give you the platform to talk about that here without getting slayed, because I do listen to some of your shows and I know people come in and they want to start on the hot seat. I want to run a really respectful podcast and room, as you know, right? So yeah, we can talk this out if we agree to disagree at the end. I don't want to make it a debate. I want to get an understanding, if that's cool.
Yep.
So absolutely. That's just to frame the podcast a little bit. But why don't you tell us how you sort of discovered the red pill and what it really is? Now, I know there's different elements and parts to it, but just so we can start to get the baseline concept of what the red pill theory is, so we can build on it from there. Because I want to interject from parts that I've known from maybe 15, 20 years ago and see how that's maybe evolved or if it's a different thing or different line altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, but not at all surprising that, you were getting hate mail and messages about, oh my God, you're going to have a guy that's red pill on the show and this and that. And that right off the bat is, shows how much misconception there is about the red pill and what it actually, talks about and what guys in the space really teach. I think the fundamental thing that I try to get guys to understand, or guys and girls, or anybody that's interested and asks me what the red pill is, it's a praxeology, which it's not a philosophy, it's not a religion, it's not an ideology. It's this idea that it's the sort of the study and the framework of human behaviors, and that humans do things on purpose, rather, with intent, rather than with, they're reflexive, or they're not thinking for themselves when they're doing things. So but really to boil it down to, as it pertains to intersexual dynamics, right? What it really is, if I could sum it up in maybe one sentence, it's guys who are seeing the world for how it is, right? So the reason the red pill got its name is it all came from and stemmed from the movie The Matrix. I think came out in, everybody knows The Matrix by now. 20 some odd years. I think it was like 99 or 2001. But the whole idea is you got the Matrix where everybody's quote unquote plugged into, where they just go about their lives and they think that that's the real world and that's the world they live in. And then all of a sudden, you got the guys that are unplugged, right? The guys that have taken the red pill and now they actually live in their actual reality. They've unplugged from the matrix, so to speak. So they've unplugged from the lies and the veil that's been pulled over their eyes by people that are tricking them into thinking that that's their reality, when actuality, reality is something completely different. Reality exists outside the matrix. So on a baseline level, people have been using red pill, blue pill, black pill for a number of different things, but it's always had its roots really in intersexual dynamics, about how men and women interact, about how men want to get with women, about how to do so, or how women think about men and vice versa. So usually when you see guys that quote unquote come to the red pill, it's almost always as a result of some sort of emotional trauma. Now, with that caveat, that's why, one of the things you'll hear oftentimes, and I hear all the time, is, oh, who hurt you? Somebody must have hurt you, or your parents must not be together, or you must have got your heart broken by a girl, or you're using that as an excuse to hate women. And all of that is, the problem with that is those folks are using an emotional argument to combat a logical one, right? Red pill is based in logic. It's based in evolutionary biology, evolutionary psychology, in the theory of human behavior as it interacts between men and women. So generally what happens is you get guys that are raised in a gynocentric social order, a female first social order, essentially, where anything that is good and that is good for the woman is good for society, and anything that is inherently good for men is essentially bad for society. It's toxic masculinity, or it's in support of the patriarchy. And so you get guys that are grown up in this world where they're seeing Disney movies and they're rom-coms, and they're saying you need to buy flowers and give chocolates, you need to be the nice guy, that falls at her feet, and all women are princesses, and you would be so lucky to have a woman marry you, and that's the goal that you should go after. And then they realize that's not what reality says, right? Women don't like the nice guy. Women don't want the guy that's going to wait 10 years for her to get done with her party years and then get the white picket fence. There's a reason why the marriage rates are in the toilet, and 50% of marriages end in divorce today in general. So what oftentimes happens, these guys get zeroed out, as we like to say, where they basically just, their wife leaves them, takes the kids, they lose the house, maybe they get broken up with by their long-term girlfriend, and whatever might happen. But they start going and looking for answers, because in their minds, they're thinking, I did everything that I was supposed to do. I've done everything that I was raised to do from the time I was a kid, right? And why isn't this working? Why do my relationships continue to fail? Especially when they're following the mainstream advice, which is you need to communicate more. You need to be in touch with your femininity and your feelings. You need to be able to find a queen and, support her and put her first in front of you. And guys are doing these things and being put through the ringer by these same women, and it's not working. So guys go and pick up a book, or they go start looking at things like The Rational Male by Rollo Tomasi, or The Unplugged Alpha by Rich Cooper, and some of this books and literature. And a lot of it does have roots in like PUA, like you mentioned, like pickup artistry. But all that really is at its core is guys sharing notes. All pickup artistry really is guys that went out to bars and clubs in the early 2000s trying to get laid. And then they figured out, this doesn't work, so I'm going to try this. Okay, that worked. And they go back and they tell their buddy, hey, I tried this, it worked. It might not be 90% of the time, 80% of the time, 50% of the time, but it evolved into this predictive framework where it's sort of a strategy that guys use to increase their odds of getting female attention, getting sex, getting into relationships, etc. So at its core, the red pill really is just a predictive framework about how men and women sort of interact, intersexual dynamics, what they want out of one another, and sort of the, I wouldn't say teachings, but sort of the advices that go along with that.
Okay, so being human, there's a lot of like variable factors when it comes to logic and emotion tied in. We can't help but have that, right? So one thing that you mentioned is that the red pill theory is very logical based, yet most likely guys are coming from some sort of a hurt emotional place to get into discovering the red pill, right? And I dare say that there's probably two types of people. I think that from my understanding or my observation, that you'd get the guys that are probably hurt and they're looking for, almost like they're looking for justice and and clarification on how to move forward, right? In one way. And the other thing I think is it feeds the other type that are narcissistic too. I think it must feed some narcissistic traits in some guys, right? So, do you think that that is a correct, probably, observation to say that they're the two different types of guys that get into the red pill?
Well, there's all kinds of guys. I wouldn't say it's a dichotomy where it's just two. And I would probably ask you to expand a little bit more on like the narcissistic piece. But what I'll say is like,
Mm.
There's a general, everybody kind of goes through the same sort of process when guys find the red pill. There's always what's known as, like, they call it red pill rage, or like the anger phase, where guys start to read these books and they pick up the information and everything starts to make sense because so many guys go through this in breakups and divorces, and they start to unplug from the matrix, so to speak. They start to say, holy this guy is basically telling me my life story out of a book that I've never heard of or read until today. And not only that, but you got guys on the internet sharing thousands of similar stories. So everybody really goes through that anger and frustration phase. And that can be a combination of a number of different things. A lot of it is, I wish I had this when I was in my 20s. I would have avoided a lot of pain and heartache. A lot of it is, wow, women really are these solipsistic creatures who are just monkey branchers and they're hypergamous, all of which are not negative things. Like hypergamy, solipsism, these are survival mechanisms for women. And that's where a lot of this gets rooted in evolutionary biology and psychology, where it's like, well, women are just going to always want the best guy she can get. So that means I have no chance. And so I look at it as the red pill in that aspect is like fire, right? So discovering the red pill is like discovering fire. You can cook with it. You can heat your house with it. If you choose to harness that energy in a positive way that makes your life better, great. If you choose to be mad about it and use that in a destructive fashion to burn your house down, to set fire to other people's stuff and use it for destruction, it's really how you choose to use it. So there's a ton of different guys. You've got guys that claim MGTOW, that basically say juice is not worth the squeeze. MGTOW is MGTOW, which stands for men going their own way, which basically these guys have just said, I'm swearing off women, too much trouble, not worth it. And then like black pill guys that are like doomers, for example, that are just these, everything in life is shit. Like, I will never get a girl.
I know nothing about black pill, so I have no
Yeah.
idea what concept is for that
So
either.
like black pill or like doomers are guys that are just like, they're the there's a word for it that's escaping me right at this current time, but basically everything in life is shit and there's no point in doing anything. Like, these guys spend all day on Reddit complaining, and I have no use and purpose and desire to be around those guys. So the guys that I want to align myself with, as we understand red pill, are the guys that take it and then they use it as a framework and they strategize around it to get better results.
Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about how I sort of first discovered, even delving into this underground world, right? Was at least 15, 16, 17 years ago or something. I did a course on Neuro-Linguistic Programming Nlp, which I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not. This kind of all stems from this. So Nlp is like it's like a persuasive language to use that's creative, to capture people's imaginations for counseling, for psychology, for sales, for all sorts of stuff, right? These two guys, Richard Bandler and John Greenlaw, actually created this back in the 60s. From that, there was a guy called Ross Jeffries. You must know who Ross Jeffries is at all. Do you know who he is? So he's one of the pioneers that kind of used this persuasive language. He's a really ugly motherfucker, by the way, and I've met him in real life, and he's a fucking jerk too, right? He's an absolute jerk. So no wonder he wasn't getting laid, right? But regardless of that, he was. I think he'd had sex. He broke his virginity at one point in time when he was younger, and then nothing for many years till I think he was in his 20s. Then he created this language from the persuasive words to sort of create these word patterns to um, use on this woman at work, and he ended up banging the cleaner on the desk at work, right? So he told these stories around, and someone came forward and said to him, let's start creating some classes and some schools and a book about this. So they started doing it, which is how this like pickup artist PUA thing started to form. I I did this NLP course out of curiosity for the mind, psychology, and things like that, hypnotism, and kind of came across this as well. This was in maybe my mid-20s when I'm still going around chasing tail, wanting to be with girls, things like that. So it wasn't really something that I like was going to study to need. But when I started finding out the little tips and tricks, it was quite amazing to actually like switch it on and off, fine tuned when when you're doing it or not now, right? Because there's a name for it and all this sort of stuff. This is how I got introduced into this like NLP world with counseling, counseling, coaching, all that stuff, but also this pickup world, right, where I met Vince Kelvin and a whole bunch of mystery method and things like that. Going back then, single young man, and learning these tips and tricks, to me it seems like this marketing ploy where they're pushing to people like, we're going to hypnotize women and bang them, right? That was a good marketing ploy to get out to the world so guys would pay for these courses. But at the baseline of things, really, if you look into it, was a lot of guys that had never had the chance to meet a woman because they'd been dorky or shy or not confident, right? And really, when you look into the process of these patterns and these courses, it's very much about building the confidence up in a man. That's what it was about, is the confidence, right? There's guys I spoke to when I went to the US to meet Ross Jeffries and Vince Kelvin. There's one particular one that rings with me where he said, um, he went up to Ross Jeffries and said, "You saved my life," because he just couldn't get a relationship, couldn't get laid. We talk about getting laid, right? But really, it was just the companionship. He wanted some connection with a woman. So this stuff really worked. But you know, time goes on, and I didn't keep in touch with these guys, and I ended up getting married and things like that. So I'm away from this scene for a long, long time, and I come back onto stereo, and I'm hearing about this red pill. Never heard of it before. It's veered off this track, and to me, from what I was used to, that PUA stuff before was very much like it was like glorified pickup lines. It was like, trying to sweet talk a woman and trying to like, fractionation where you go back and forth. But the red pill stuff to me seems very like go hard. This is my fucking way. This is what I'll accept and what I won't accept. The psychology is kind of like the tips and tricks have taken out of it. And it's kind of like a harsh my way or the highway. That's what I'm sort of picking up about it. And I do find that it feels arrogant, even though you're a great speaker at what you do. But I think when guys do that burning fire, what you talked about before, right? That's kind of the stigma that's really attached to it. That's the kind of understanding that I do have about red pill. Is there are guys, and there was a couple on the app who I'm friends with, found out they were right into this, really going out there and slaying the shit out of everything about any woman's doing, right? And I just thought, hang on, right, let's back up for a second. And I do understand that there's a lot of logic behind the theory of the red pill, and it's backed up by the psychology, and from so many times of that being like 90% correct. So you've got a good chance of whatever that move that you make is going to have that reaction. Yet it's still very much based on emotion from both sides. It's the emotion from a woman not wanting to lose out, or the fear of losing that relationship with a guy, and the guy from either coming from a hurt place or feeding his narcissism. What are your thoughts on that? How much do you think that the red pill has evolved from that kind of like, I feel like the innocent days of glorified pickup lines? There isn't really that many pickup lines now. It's more like statements and like, go hard. This is the way it is. This is what I accept. This is what I won't. Am I right in saying that, or am I off track?
Yeah, I mean, I would even say like pickup artistry, those guys were the pioneers in the space for sure. Now, I think I would say maybe that's a little even backwards, where it's like I do think there's a lot of PUA guys out there that were like skeevy, like low life dudes that, because that was a whole thing. There was nothing about pickup artistry that was about this is how you get in a relationship, this is how you court a woman. This is all about how do you go out at midnight in a bar, say some stuff, get her away from her friends, isolate her, get indicators of interest, keynote escalation, and then get her back to your hotel room and bang her. And there's a reason, like in Neil Strauss's The Game, he talks about Mystery getting one-itis for this model he was dating, and he's gotten it multiple times. He's never learned how to, he can go and talk the talk for 30 minutes or a couple hours at a bar, but clearly lacks any sort of relationship skills and that kind of thing. I mean, I think the thing that gets lost a lot about this is that we're talking guys that have abundance when it comes to women and that actually can internalize these things and go and pick up women and have sex or have multiple dating options or date non-exclusively with multiple women and multiple partners. We're talking about a very, very, very small subset of men. We're talking about the top 20, top 10% of men. So it's always really interesting to me when it's like, oh, well, men just want to run around, they want to do this. But 80% of men are invisible to most women. 80% of the women are swiping and choosing the top 20% of men because they're naturally hypergamous and they want their best possible reproductive option. So, I mean, look, like pickup artistry has its place for guys that have very little skill, very little confidence. And there's no fake it till you make it in this space either. There's no faking confidence because what women are really, really good at, again, this comes from a survival mechanism and the need to be able to do this is picking up on subtle cues and picking up on things covertly and non-verbally. They're really good non-verbal and covert communicators because it's, they need to be able to see through lies or they need to be able to read body language because guys are just like very, we're very abrupt. We're very straight up because like we are the fighters. We are the strong sex of the two. So women that they needed to be more cunning and they need to be more in touch with nonverbal communication as a survival mechanism. So that's why this whole like go fake confidence thing, it doesn't, that's what these guys needed in the pickup artistry space. They needed to have canned openers. They needed to have a strategy. They needed to have a playbook that they could run, that they could fall back on because they didn't have that natural confidence or that natural experience where they were able to hold a conversation, be socially calibrated and things like that. So I don't consider myself a pickup artist. A lot of the guys that I'm with, they've had backgrounds with guys in pickup. I know a lot of dudes that used to run in circles with guys like Mystery and Neil Strauss and these guys and things like that. But I think we've definitely evolved out of that. Now, I don't disagree that there's sort of this, there's this sort of tenet. I don't know how to say tenet because it's not exclusive to Red Pill, but there's this idea in Red Pill talking about your mental point of origin, where as men, we're constantly told from the time we're little boys all the way through adulthood that you need to be the man, you need to do the right thing. And like, you need to marry her and make her an honest woman because that's what a real man does, or a real man does this and a real man does that without ever the guy feeling like he's got his own life in his own hands. So all mental point of origin really is, I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to put my needs and my desires before all else. And if somebody is down with the program and if somebody wants to come along and be a part of that, then great. It's also about drawing and setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, right? There are just some things that I'll accept in a relationship or in casual dating even and there are some things that I won't. And that's okay. I don't control anybody. I don't tell anybody they can't do anything. But once my boundaries and lines are crossed, like that's it. So, that's like my own personal philosophy, but I know a lot of the guys out there do that as well. And some guys communicate and compromise and things like that. The way that I view a successful and a healthy relationship is I think the idea of a 50-50 partnership is a myth. I don't think there's ever been a relationship in the history of the world that's been 50-50. There are no countries that have two presidents, companies that have two CEOs. At least they have a board of directors where there's some way of deciding who gets their way or makes the decision. The ideal scenario and the ideal relationship is where you've got the man who's leading. He's essentially, and whatever sort of metaphor you want to use. If you want to use captain and first mate, if you want to use captain on a plane and then co-pilot, if you want to use the mob boss and the consigliere, she will be the trusted advisor. But the final decision is going to rest with me, right? Because it boils down to, like, we also don't live in the same world. Like, women don't experience the world through the lens of men. They have no idea the struggles that men go through on a daily basis. They don't know what it's like to live as men, just like men don't know what it's like to live as women. So for someone to kind of give me advice or trying to make decisions for my life when they don't experience it through the lens that I do, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, to your point, as far as, my way or the highway, like I have no qualms about that. Right now, that doesn't mean that a woman in my life should be seen and not heard and should be just cleaning up after me all the time. That's something that we discuss, and that's something that is personal boundaries for me. But I have no problem with men out there that are choosing to put themselves first and drawing lines in the sand about what they will accept and what they won't out of a woman they're dating.
I think there's nothing wrong with that as well, with putting down what your guidelines are. Of course, it gives you a standard then as well. You won't be a walkover. You won't, take shit from certain things. I do get that, right? But it does seem quite one way. So one question I do, ask myself in looking at these situations is that, right, you've got your boundaries. There's certain things that you'll take and you won't take, right? And I've heard them before when you've talked on shows, right? And that will work for you, and you'll get someone that's going to fit that, or they can leave. I get all that. But have you ever really asked yourself that the kind of power or dominance that you exert over a woman that will accept that, what sort of a quality of character she'd be? Would she be someone who's insecure, not strong, that's kind of like, you're not physically chaining her up, but is it someone who's just a yes man? I mean, and something that you'd be happy with like that?
Well, I mean, I don't need like the qualities I want in a woman are submissiveness and are agreeableness and are pleasantness and feminine. So for women to say, hey, I'm a strong independent woman, or we're equal partners, or I'm going to make decisions too, like that's not something that is just it's not attractive to me, right? I don't find I don't find masculine qualities like assertiveness and dominance and wanting to go toe to toe with me. I don't find that attractive, right? I value that in people that I'm doing business with, or that I have, I value that in friends of mine that live in the same world that I do as far as other men, but I don't necessarily value that in a woman that I'm dating. So, I mean, no, it's like I said, and somebody asked me that the other day, like, well, then what are they, just flesh toys laying around waiting for you? It's like, no, like I have no problem with you interjecting your point, and you like, if you get to the point where I've elevated you to that status where you've proven time again that you add value to my life, and you've gotten to a point where you're a trusted advisor, I will certainly be open to hearing your opinion. I'm not saying that you can't talk to me or you can't offer advice or your opinion or what you think, but the ultimate decision of how it's going to go is going to rest with me. Now, here's the caveat with that. If I want, and this is something guys don't really understand, or a lot of guys don't, if I'm sitting here saying I'm going to have 100% authority, or I'm going to lead this relationship, then that if I'm going to have 100% authority, I also need to have 100% responsibility, which means I need to be capable of making the good decisions. If I'm the captain of the ship, I have to be capable of steering that ship to shore, not into the rocks. If I'm driving the car, flying the plane, I have to get it to land or where I need to go and stay on the road and not veer off and fuck everything up. So that's a burden that I'm willing to bear. But a woman that can help me get there by making my life easier and adding value, then we all win. Because women do not want to lead. Women do not want to be in charge, especially in relationships. Women are looking for strong, masculine, virtuous men that know how to go out there, get things done. And it's been this way from the beginning of time, even through now. The guys that could reproduce are the guys that were the best fighters so they could protect the tribe. They were the guys that were best at, commanding and collecting and maintaining resources, because it was all survival mechanism. So when we're putting women in these roles, we're expecting them to lead and make decisions, it's out of their natural feminine nature and feminine imperative, and it's a role they don't really want. So I have no problem with somebody if I've elevated her to that status. Like if this is just a girl that I'm seeing, and she's not living with me, or we're not, the decisions I make are solely going to affect me and not her, then she really has no bearing on what she's going to tell me to do. And if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But that's where that's where I draw those lines. It's like, look, like I understand that if I'm going to make the decisions, I have to take responsibility of those decisions and what happens after the fact as well. I don't get to blame anybody else, especially if I make a mistake. But that's something that I'm willing to bear.
Okay, so there's a couple of things I want to go into. Same sort of question that diverts two ways a little bit. So, um, again, going back to the logic, what you say behind the red pill theory, it does seem very, you know, scheduled. It seems very like robotic. It seems very set in its ways. But again, I sort of can't get past the thought that it's driven completely emotionally from both sides. So you've got, again, guys who have been hurt or guys that are trying to achieve something. And if the woman is, you know, within your boundaries, so to speak, and achieving that within your boundaries, right? That's an emotional success too for you. And let's not forget that women are emotional thinkers. Guys are more logical thinkers, in general, right? So you're using logic on a woman for however long a period of time. Do you think that that woman might change down the track? Because there's one thing I sort of learned is, you can't save anyone, you can't change anyone, you can't make anyone do anything they don't want to do. It's kind of like three rules that I never want to end up with a woman under those pretense, right? But it sort of feels like, and you can again have your boundaries and do those sort of things, right? But do you think it might be a less confident woman who's being suppressed that might have enough 10, 15, 20 years down the track because she feels a little bit suppressed and not her free self to break out of her own boundaries?
Well, I mean, I guess it's not about suppressing somebody else. It's not about saying
It's
you
not the
can't.
intention. It's
Well,
not the intention, but do you think it does a little bit?
but if she's suppressed, then it's by her own choice in staying. That's the whole point. It's like, look, I never
It's
say,
it's a fear, emotionally fearing that she's going to lose you.
but there's nothing. No one's got a gun to this person's head. No one is
No,
saying
not at all.
like. So I
But
mean,
it's like, almost like
but
emotional
then, but
ransom
now
a
what we're
little bit,
doing
right?
is like, but now what we're doing is we're basically saying, okay, well, do women have agency or not? Can they make their own choices and can they take responsibility for who they stay with and who they're with or not? I mean, regardless of the reason behind it, whether it's out of fear of loss or whether it's whatever it might be, I mean, is it do people have their responsibility to look out for themselves, or are we just passing the buck and making it somebody else's fault if we, so that's to me, it's always been, look, I'm going to do A no matter what, whether a girl is in my life, whether multiple girls are in my life, whether no girls are in my life. I'm going to do A. That's my track. If you want to be alongside the ride, cool. Like, honestly, it might turn into A plus because then I can actually focus more of my time and energy doing this. An example I always like to use is just like, I can't stand for the life of me menial tasks like picking my clothes up off the floor, doing laundry, washing dishes, cooking, all that kind of stuff. I hate it. I can't do it. It throws me off my energy. So if a girl's going to be in my life, it's like, look, the less time that I have to do that, the less time I have to spend on these menial BS tasks, and the more she lightens that burden for me, the more time that I can make money, where I can plan dates, I can plan vacations, I can be more available time wise for her and that sort of thing. So it's just about, supporting me in making it things easy. Like that's really the base. One of the
It's like a
basic.
trade-off.
Well,
Like, I'll work harder. I can supply more things if you're covering that area. I can cover this area. It's kind of like you're trying to state that you have your own roles in a way.
yeah, in a way. I mean, look, like it's about adding value. Now, not everybody find like some guys like to cook. Like one of my best friends is like a gourmet chef, and he always does the cooking. It's not because he's like a feminist or he's feminine. It's because he's really good at it and he enjoys it. And it's a hobby he likes to do. So, but for me personally, it's not always just about the gen. It's regardless if they were feminine roles or not. I hate doing them. I can't stand doing the menial tasks, but
Amen. I'm the same.
yeah, but I guess the point is, it's like, does she add value to my life or not? Like, does she add value? What does she bring to the table that makes my life easier, not harder, right? And so that's why, like, oh, strong, independent woman, and I want to talk about this, and I'm out every day in the world dealing with guys that are trying to slip things by me in negotiations and the job, and guys that are, I'm worrying about stuff over my shoulder and who's saying this and doing what. The last thing I want to have when I'm ready to come home is to do more of that. I want to have a nice, pleasant time with a nice, pleasant, beautiful, feminine woman, because that's what tames the savage beast. So, look, like it's always, anyone has the right to leave at any given time. I have never said, I never tell anyone they can't do anything. It's really as simple as this. Like a personal boundary is just like, I don't date girls who do X. And it's just like, oh, well, you're jealous, you're insecure. It's like, no, I'm just not really into it. Like, so, It's not
I
like,
think there's nothing wrong with what you say there, right? It's of course you have your boundaries, and it's like I won't date girls that have X, but from some of the talks that I've heard, it's like I won't date girls that have X, but I'm still going to do Y.
yep.
And they have to accept that, right? And I guess that's kind of the emotional ransom that they're held for. They don't. It's like, why can you do it and I can't? So one of the things I wanted to ask you here was,
Yeah.
um, obviously, I'm going to call it a trade-off. Like you can work harder because you're taking care of that part of business. They're going to take care of this part of business. It's adding more value for you.
Sure.
Um, you know, they're adding value to your life. You're adding value back to their life. And it really, if we break that down, it's much more in a way of security and financial security, right? Because you're out to work and take care of them, make sure they're safe. But there's other elements as well. There's other elements of emotional factors too. So, is there any trade-off for you in that particular field? Because it sounds like, again, I won't date girls that do X, but she's doing this thing for me. I'm providing financially for her, or you know, giving her security. But she wants a bit more emotional dedication, or something from you where you're exclusive, but you still don't want to give that. Is there any sort of trade-off for you in that way?
As far as like giving away exclusivity, or
Yeah,
like,
giving
what
away
am I,
exclusivity.
what you're saying? Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, say that again.
what I'm trading off to her is my time, attention, and resources, right? So I'm giving her time and attention. I'm being around her as I'm spending time with her, which fulfills an emotional need. And she can vent to me about her problems and things like that. I won't try to offer solutions, because a lot of times most times women just want to talk about their problems. They're not looking for solutions. They just want to be heard. So that's fine. That's no problem. I will give I offer emotional support in that way, and I offer, the again, it's time, attention, and resources. It's what women generally want out of guys. Like, attention is the coin of the realm in girl world, and for guys, it's consistent and fun, consistent bedroom fun. That's good, and just generally pleasant feminine energy. So those are the trade offs. It's I will my now, not only that, but it's my trade off is actually also keeping attraction high by continuing to focus on my hobbies, continuing to go chase excellence, to continuing to go chase goals and chase my purpose and try to be as successful as I possibly can. Because what women really want is she wants to wake up every day and look at her man or her husband or her boyfriend and think that there is no better dude out there for her, that she has gotten the best possible high value, of whatever you want to call it. She's basically satisfied her hypergamy. She's got a guy that she's crazy about in bed, and he's the hot guy that she wants to bang, but also provides the necessary security, comfort, and attention that she needs from the emotional needs, because women have two sides to their hypergamy. They've got the alpha side, where they want to really bang the hot guy. And then they've got the beta side. Just those are the terms we use. Beta equals comfort, alpha equals, attraction. But they still want security, and to like emotional security, financial security, all that kind of stuff. So they want a guy that is satisfying her need to find her best possible mate and lock him down. Now, where that can sometimes run into a problem, as you brought up, I expect a girl that I'm dating, even if we're casually dating, even if we're not boyfriend and girlfriend. If we were boyfriend and girlfriend, this would go without saying. But I expect a girl who I'm casually dating to be sexually exclusive to me. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be sexually exclusive to her. And so the conversation comes up all the time. Well, that's not fair. Or how come you get to do whatever you want and she doesn't? And for one, I could just say, it's just my boundary. That's just how it is. But for one, it's because this is where the differences between men and women come into play. Men are wired to want to spread our seed far and wide. Men are wired to sleep with as many women as we possibly can, because going back to our caveman days, and we haven't evolved out of it, is we want to ensure the best possible chance that we're going to pass along our bloodline, because the infant mortality rate was like 80%. We had to sleep with as many women as possible. We wanted to try to get them to bear as many children as possible, so we would have an ensured bloodline and legacy that carried on. Women, on the other hand, they're hypergamous. They want to settle down with her best possible option. She wants to settle down with one guy. So this idea of promiscuity for men is looked at as negative. That's why it goes back to the gynocentric social order we live in, where you need to be, stop running around and being a player or a man whore or whatever, because it's not good for women. So our sexual strategies are at odds with one another. But me as a man, like I can be in love, and a husband can be in love with his wife and have a house and have children, and then go out and smash out some girls in a hotel or go on a business trip, and then he can still be in love with his wife and come home and still provide for her, provide for the kids. But it doesn't work the same with women, right? So when women have sex with a guy,
I think
but
it's a little deeper than that. Sorry to cut you off. Before I get lost in this, is before when you said about you want a woman to be exclusive with you, but you don't necessarily want that with you with other women. You still want to sleep around, and you said some will say that's not fair. Do you think it's fair?
I think it's irrelevant. I don't think fairness has any place in relationships. I don't think, because there's no 50-50. I don't, whether it's fair or not doesn't matter to me. It's,
So some would call that arrogant, then, right? And I know you don't care because it's like your boundaries in your
well,
life.
I
Like I
mean,
get where you're coming from.
but
This I'm trying to
fair,
play the devil's advocate to get
yeah,
an understanding.
but
Sorry.
who gets to decide the standard of what's fair? Life isn't fair. Like, some people are billionaires and I'm not. Is that fair? Does that mean they should have to give me their
No,
money?
but let's go back to the
Yeah,
let's
I
go
get,
back to the caveman days. I mean, we keep stating about the red pill, how it's like logic and it's predictive because of our psychology from the caveman days, and we're hardwired that way. But it's been millions and millions of years of evolution that have come into that, where we've developed more parts of our brain, more emotional parts of our brain, and the more that we're getting advances, humanity, the more understanding and awareness that we have for each other, right? So it's like building a respect. It's not just. I know that those instincts will still be there. What you're saying, I do get that. But are you ever factoring in the intelligence factor of humans as we go through generations and generations and develop this emotional part of our brain? I mean that's got to play a massive factor into things.
well, I mean, it doesn't have any bearing in evolution, because we're talking about millions of years. I mean, 100 years of feminism is not going to override millions of years of hardwiring and natural selection and evolution. But to
Yeah,
that
but maybe
point,
women always felt that way, but society had suppressed them before. It's just now that they're getting a voice to do things over so many decades, right? And everyone's going, "Hey, what the hell? Look, it's getting out of control," or whatever they're saying, right? And guys are like, "See, women should be in the kitchen and guys should be out there working," like that just to give it like a poor ass breakdown, right? Not that I think that, but these things come out like that, but. I don't know that it's just suddenly been switched on with our emotional intelligence. I think it's been around for a long time, and society has only just broken through exposing it now and allowing more people to speak freely. Maybe it's out of control in some areas. I'm not just talking about women. I'm talking about all aspects of the spectrum, right? But I guess what I'm trying to say is, it still sounds so cut and dry and down to logic, when I know that emotion has a huge part to play with it. So when back to the question about it being unfair, yeah, I totally think it's unfair. I think that if you could both sleep around at the same time, I understand that the off put though. It's like, I don't want to sleep with another woman sleeping with other girls, other guys, right? Like that's off putting as a guy. You lose that kind of alpha male thing to share your woman. Like it's not something I'd ever do. But at the same time, if I was to go exclusive with a woman, I would think it would be some sort of a connection and relationship that you'd build out of respect, to see that if it can pursue further into the future to create something. But I guess I'm maybe going in circles here. I should throw this at you. What do you think success is for you? What is success for you? And where do you want to take your future with your relationships through the
well,
red pill?
I want to go back really quick, because, like,
Yeah, sure.
you brought up something that it's like, it's when people talk about, well, okay, we have agency over our evolution. We're not just monkeys that are slaves to our brains. But we only ever hear that about men need to change. It's never about women. Nobody is ever shaming women for wanting a husband and a house and kids and the white picket fence and the dog, which is their natural. What is their natural drive? No one's ever shaming women for that, but we're shaming men all the time for wanting to use and act on their natural mating strategies, which is essentially unlimited access to unlimited women. So I mean, I always find that very interesting, because it's like, well, like, it's not fair for you to do this, or you need to. Again, it goes back to, a real man doesn't run around. A real man gets married and has kids. But it's, again, that's something that is favoring a man to For a woman's sexual strategy to succeed, basically get one guy, he has to sacrifice his sexual strategy and vice versa. If a guy wants to date a bunch of different women and sleep with a bunch of different women, that woman has to basically abandon her desire and her drive for one guy. So the other thing before I talk about the success too is that I think there's this idea that things are getting better because of feminism and this, but in reality, they're getting demonstrably worse. The marriage rates are in the toilet. More people are getting married later than ever before. The unhappiest demographic of all people, men or women at any age, are women between the ages of 40 and 60. 1 in 4 women between the age of 40 and 60 is on some sort of SSRI or antidepressant drug. There's a article or there's research done by Morgan Stanley that basically just demonstrates by 2030, 45%, almost half of all working age women between the ages of 25 and 40 will be unmarried, single, and childless. So there's a growing sort of demographic of unhappy women every single day. The number of people on antidepressant drugs has jumped in 15 years 65%, and women are twice as likely to be on them than men. So this idea that things are changing for the better is just the proof isn't in the pudding, in my opinion. And not even my opinion. I mean, we can just look at the data. That's directly from the CD. That's directly from the CDC. Yeah. But success for me, success for me is I would not mind being in a monogamous relationship. My ideal situation, I would have somebody that understands that I'm going to give them the security that they need. If we're going to have a home together, because I want to have children. Now, I'll never get married. The marriage laws in the West are just so horrible towards men. There's no reason. It's just and that's something we can talk about another time. But if we ever do, either way, I don't think I'm ever going to get married. There's a very, very slim chance I'll ever get married here, especially the way the laws are in the West against men when it comes to child support and alimony. But I do see myself as some guy that wants children one day. I still have that urge to reproduce. I still want to have kids. And so I potentially have to find a woman that I'm going to be able to make the mother of my children, even though we're not going to be married. And before anybody jumps in and says, oh, hey, good luck, finding a girl that'll have your kids without, marrying you. It's like 40% of kids are born today out of wedlock as it is. So it's already happening. By
the way, I don't want this podcast for anyone to be jumping in and slang or name calling. It's not that. I think we're having a great discussion here. I'm really liking the points of view that are bouncing back and forth. But yeah, sorry, just to finish your point, and then I wanted to ask you something.
Yeah. And so ideally for me, it's look, I have no problem having my main girl that's elevated to main girl status. That's who I'm giving time, attention, and resources to. Now, look, she's gonna to continue to keep me happy, she has to understand that I have a natural appetite for variety in other women. This is why, they do studies on guys that have multiple wives, that are look, you spend it no matter what, no matter how good the sex is, no matter how nice she is, no matter how amazing she is, you eventually are going to get bored. And so it's maybe you need to stray off the path for a little bit, but it's not, I don't have multiple girlfriends or multiple wives. Maybe, I need to go off and, hey, look, I'm not going to put you in any danger sexually. I'm not going to take any girls out to the same places that I would take you. Women, for the most part, understand that men have these urges, and especially guys that they deem as their high value man, for example, or their best possible guy. I take Tiger Woods, for example. The majority of women just don't want to be embarrassed. There's no way, and nobody will ever be able to convince me that Tiger Woods' wife did not know that he was running around with prostitutes and strippers and whores and things like this. It wasn't until she was embarrassed on a global scale and every tabloid and every news outlet all over the world picked it up that she decided she had had enough and she was going to leave this guy, because she had the house, she had the car, she had the kids, she had the clothes, she had everything she wanted from him. And she maybe turned a blind eye and looked away whenever he would go out and get some strange. So, I have no problem with a relationship and being with somebody that, I can have kids with, but it's unlikely that I'm ever going to be completely sexually monogamous with just one person.
Okay. And just circling back quickly to the question of what is success for you? I don't know if you quite answered that one before. I mean, if you had to define Sorry?
I thought I
That's
just
what
answered that just now. Like
okay,
success.
sorry, okay, okay.
I
I
have to
didn't know if
be
it was
a woman.
business related or okay, no, that's cool. Um, have you ever been in love before?
Sure, of course.
Deeply in love?
I mean, I think it's subjective, but I would like to believe so. Yeah. I
So,
mean, look,
you
Rock,
know,
like my last relationship, 2.5 years, we lived together, we got a dog together, we had the names picked out of our kids, we knew where we were going to get married. Like I had the next 40 years of my life planned out already before me.
that was recently, was it? Or when
A year
you're
ago, yeah, it ended a year
okay,
ago, right before I found the red pill, or
right
right
before
around
you
the same time. It was coming to an end as I was discovering it.
okay. And so did you find that the red pill really resonated with you because of the relationship you just came out of? And I don't want to go into your personal details about it, but I guess I'm trying to get to this, right? Like when I'm hearing you speak about success and security for women and giving things back and listening to their time because they just want to be heard, it still feels to me like kind of cold, right? It feels like you're doing the mannerisms of it, but not. It's like you can hear it, but you're not listening to it in a way. And I'm not trying to judge or anything like that. It's just from the talk that we're talking right now. And like, okay, so she might do those nice things for you. You might go out, work a little harder. You might go and give her a bunch of flowers, but you just give her. And I'm not one of these rosy romantic guys either. But I'm trying to say, and it's really difficult to find the words for this. But instead of just giving someone flowers, have you ever really like given someone flowers with like emotion behind it, like like a special moment instead of just here, I bought you some flowers, but there's a lot more meaning behind it in that emotional sense. I'm not hugely an emotional guy or a romantic in my relationships, and certainly now that I'm older. When I was younger, I tried to like use it as a tool, right? Like as a tool to get women, but I just know that you're right when it comes to success in the world of security, but success for some people is by having that fulfilled family with kids, um, not worried about money, even though it's harder without money, right? But to be fulfilled and have each other's health, that's success to somebody else. And do you think that you're missing like a big part of that when you have to maybe compromise and give something back to a woman if you were going to end up with them long term?
I think the point we're trying to get to is I think maybe you think I'm like emotionally stunted when it comes to
Not
this.
completely emotionless, but like just it seems like it stopped slightly short. If I'm hearing it in the talk, I don't know. I'm trying to feel you out
Well,
now, so you can
I've
update
come.
me.
I used to be I had three major relationships in my 20s, and all of those were very much like lay down on the train tracks so she can walk across. It was very much put her on a pedestal, do everything that she needs to do, be the guy, be the emotional support, be the rock, be the gift giver, and the guy that keeps the house clean and that just listens to you when you're having a panic attack and listens to you bitch about your mother and how much you hate her. And it was just give, 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 and no take. And I all of that came from a place of being emotionally in tune and wanting to be that emotional support and doing what I thought was my job and duty as a man, which was to provide that and be there emotionally. When in reality, like I did not do enough of I became like a gay best friend essentially. I became the guy that she was unattracted to because I was, stopped chasing my hobbies. I stopped courting her correctly. I stopped, going to the gym as hard. I fell into the same trap that a lot of guys fall into where they do everything they can to get the girl, but they stop doing what they should do to keep the girl. Now, that also means that sometimes, like, you create a persona of yourself that is not exactly true, and then as she gets to know you, she kind of sees the veil fall down a little bit, or you reveal who you
Mask
truly
comes
are.
down, yeah. It's
Enough.
maybe a 2 year period too, right? People's masks truly come down because when you
Sure.
first meet each other, you put your best foot forward, you try to impress each other, and then over that time, you can see the real pitch or prick behind those masks after a couple of years, right? So I totally get that. That's a big turning point, a 2 year
Sure.
point in a
Yeah, but I
relationship.
mean, look, like I was absolutely head over heels for all three of these women. I mean, first one was when I was 20, 21, then 25, and recently like 27, 28. So yeah, it's not about, see, this is something I want to make clear because I think this is, people will walk away from this, or they often do, or like, oh, he's emotionally stunted because he got his heart broken. And that's not what it's about. It's understanding that women, when it doesn't take a lot to tune into the emotions of women. It doesn't take a lot. They want to be heard. They want to feel that they're being heard and that their opinions and their emotions matter. And that they're, that's where guys need to be sort of this quote unquote beta provider sometimes, because they need to provide that emotional support. This is a trap that guys often fall into. And I did myself as well, is where they spend so much of their lives being doormats in the emotional punching bag that they become unattractive. So they find the red pill and they're like, oh man, like my wife stopped banging me, so I need to go completely alpha. And then her attraction will just shoot through the roof and then everything will be all great. But you can't overcorrect in one, you can't be overcorrected in one.
That's the pendulum, yeah.
You got to have both. So right now, look, like my whole thing is I put women through the ringer, so to speak. Like I 2 months, 3 months, 6 months really is not enough time for me to elevate a woman to that relationship status, because it has nothing to do with, part of it is, I want to have options. You never know what's going to happen and come along. And I'm a younger guy in this space. Like my value as a man is only increasing as I make more money.
How old are you, man?
29.
Roughly?
I'll be 30 in February. So, generally men are not peaking until mid 30s, even early 40s for guys that can stay in shape. So, I'm taking my time and I'm really just seeing what's out there and applying these new things that I know and learn, and I have better relationships now with women that I'm not exclusive with than I did with women that I was exclusive with. We have more fun. We have lighter times. We're better connected. We have way more fun in the bedroom. So
is that because the expectations aren't there for relationships, that you're more free to do what you want from each other's side?
I mean,
because something I want to throw in there, and I don't want to cut you off, but I've been wanting to ask this for a while, is that, do you think a lot of the breakdown with marriages and relationships is because of the sort of the mental frame that, when you get married, it's like 1 + 1 = 1. Like you're together and your whole world has to be combined. Like I do get that you have to compromise and help each other out and do things like that. But it's like people lose each other's identity when they unite like that, instead of working side by side within your own identity. Like 1 + 1 = 2. But I think that whole concept is skewed when it gets to relationships, and this is the breakdown that we're having in society, rather than going off logic or emotion and things like that. Because the more emotion behind a thought, the less logical it is. Simple as that. So when people are getting high strung because of these expectations in relationships, and no, we're married and we have to do this and we have to do that, I think it's kind of poisoning future generations. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the reason for the large breakdown in marriages and long-term relationships is because a lot of guys fall into the trap where they think they've won. They think that death do us part means they don't have to do anything anymore. They think like, I've got to work really hard in the beginning, and okay, now I've made her my girlfriend. Great. Now I need to keep it up, and now I put a ring on her finger, and now I bought a house, and now there's a baby in her belly, and now we have the 2 kids. They treat that, or they look at it as an insurance policy. When
I'm guilty of that myself. I do. You feel like, that's it. I'm married. I'm done now. What's next?
I'm good. I'm off.
Not next.
I can just sit back in my lazy boy and watch TV. Come home every night, spend 10 hours on the couch watching football every Sunday. Drink beer, get fat, not do anything, just punch the clock, and now I'm cruising for the next 30 or 45 years. And that's not what women want. Women still want to be courted. They still want guys that are making an effort. They still want the guy. They want the guy that was, working to get her. But guys fall into this trap where they stop doing that. And it's not always the guy's fault, but because guys have the burden of performance, because guys have to continue to be the one to lead, to maintain attraction, guys should be focusing on their hobbies. They should be staying in shape. They should always be looking to improve themselves, because again, what happens is when guys stagnate, women will no longer see them as, this is my best possible option. Maybe she gets a raise at work, or maybe she starts getting more attention from other higher, more successful guys. And she looks at this dude who's just like sitting in a couch 24 hours a day. And she's like, that's really, like, I can do better than this guy. And so they're like, look, that's when the hypergamy is kicking in. It's constantly there. And again, this is not a slight. This has nothing to do with women are just monkey branchers and they're always looking to leave.
Does it work both ways though? Doesn't it work both ways? Like, maybe the guy's letting himself go. He not really, time's getting on, 10, 15 years into the marriage, he's no longer probably her best option, but she's not someone else's probably best option either anymore. They're both getting on in time, I'm just thinking guys are also looking for their best option too, not just women.
Well, but the difference is like guys can't walk outside and get attention from most guys can't just walk outside and get attention from women. It's a very small set of guys, where it's the complete inverse for women. Like women will always be sought after. Women will always have guys like there's no
after a breakup, right? They can always get it.
well, look, any woman can really go outside and hold up a sign that says "Get in line to fuck me," and they'll have a line around the block of 100+ guys. You get 99.9% of guys can't do or say the same for themselves. So the reason that guys are far more likely to stay in bad marriages and bad relationships because their fear of being alone or the idea of them having to go back out there and essentially hunt for their food again is so the difference is like the guy's got a fridge full of food, right? He's married. Now the fridge is empty and now he's got to go out. And not only is it, he's got to hunt the gazelle down. He's got to hunt in his prey. And I'm sorry for the the metaphor as an example here. But he's got to hunt for the gazelle now. The difference is a woman has a fridge full of food. She thinks like, well, this food is going bad and it's spoiled. And now she walks outside and instead of gazelles walking around, she just goes and finds the next fridge. It's a sea of fridges for a woman instead of a sea of gazelles it is for men. So it's far easier for women to go out and get into a new relationship. That's why women initiate 70 to 80% of divorces, not only because they want to go find their best option, but because they'll be taken care of by the government. But most guys can't leave and go and find somebody else, right? Most guys are stuck because their idea of
it's a longer process for a guy.
I'd rather settle for sex once a month and maybe a BJ on my birthday, and that's fine, instead of going out there and going at it alone. Because as guys, our biggest fear is not passing on our genetic legacy, is not passing on children, not passing along our bloodline. So if we give up, if that woman leaves us, that in our brain, that's why guys are affected so much worse when it comes to breakups and divorces. Basically, we think we're going to die because that's it. If we can't reproduce, our bloodline ceases to exist. That's it. We have no legacy. So that's why it's always worse for guys. I mean, yeah, guys want their best possible option, but the majority of guys, it's not the same way. It's not the same thing because it's not driven biologically from our evolutionary standpoint. Guys want quantity, women want quality.
Okay, so just on those thoughts, Moff, I've just realized that we've got a couple of messages from Stereo, so I better take them. I don't know how long they've been sitting there. This is the first time I'm just simulcasting, so let's give them a go. Let's see, we've got Truthful Sweet up first. And we can't hear anything. Hang on a second. Let me just do that again. I think it's that one. Let's try that again. I'm so new to this, so might not be working. Hang on, give me a second. Why is that one not going? Okay, we're not going to do the messages from Stereo. There's only 2 anyway. Sorry, so we can't do that because I don't know why they're not coming through, but all good. I'll test that another time. We do have one person that raised there. It's Elvis that raised his hand in the audience there from Fireside. So Elvis, we're going to pop you up for 60 seconds and then we're just going to pop you straight back down. So let's bring him up for a second so he can ask you a question. Invite to the stage. Here we go. Elvis. Okay, Elvis, you there? Unmute there.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, actually, I didn't mean to do that, man. I was listening, but I saw an option for writing a message. So I guess if you write a message, it means you have a question, right? Is that what that is? I never did that before.
I missed the first part of that. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be raising my hand. There's a little thing. It says react. Okay. It lets you write. So if anyone wants to ask a message with a reaction.
Sure, you can react with a microphone. We can bring you up for a minute. You can ask a question and to Moff, and then we'll put you back down to the audience so you can answer that. But look, this is all very new to me as well. This system. Sorry.
Yeah, this is only my third time on listening to one of your shows on this app. But I did have something to say.
Sure.
Everybody says relationships should be 50-50, but to me, that's the wrong way to look at it. I think it should be 100%, 100%. And together you split the load. It's a different idea behind it. Same concept, but a different idea. A lot of people go like, they want to enter a relationship. What can this person do for me? Instead of like, what does this person need me to do for them? Because people are confused between wants and needs today. A lot of people think that their wants trump other people's needs, and it's not that way. You know, um, just like spanking your kids, it makes them feel invalidated. Explain it to them why they're getting in trouble, and you don't have to hit them. But everybody's got to do what they got to do. If you're looking for somebody that's going to fulfill some things that you could do on your own, you might not want to get in a relationship yet. I think a lot of people these days, well, back in the like 40s and stuff, it was much more common for people to be 20, 25 and get married and have kids and stuff already. But that's because when they graduated high school, they had the equivalent of an associate's degree and they already had the skill and the trade. Like they don't teach kids. No one prepares the kids for the world by the time they graduate high school like they used to. When I was in school, we had wood shop, you know, um, machine shop. They had accounting, all kinds of things that they have. They don't have those anymore. Like kids don't. They have no skills when they get out of high school. It's just to force them into more education, which you don't always need because I know some people that are very, very successful, extremely successful, monetarily speaking, and never went to college at all. Um, it's just a different world. I think there's a lot of people being tricked into thinking they have to do something at a certain time when we're not all square pegs. We don't all fit in the same square holes. Everybody's life is different. I know some people didn't get married till their late 30s and they're perfectly happy. I mean, happier than anybody. And I know people that got married when they were 21, 22, and they're twice divorced. So there's no right fit for anybody. It's just when you find the right person, it's all going to fit. Just don't go into anything in a selfish mindset and you'll be fine. Because if you're not saying, what can I add to this relationship? Why are you even in one? Really? You're looking for a mommy or a daddy, and that's not going to work. So,
Thanks, man. I'm just going to pop you down and we'll
no
go
problem.
into that a little bit now. Thanks, brother, for coming on the stage. So what do you think of that, Moff? I mean, I didn't know how that was completely relating to relationships, but do you think that over generations that the change in what Elvis was talking about with the way that men are being raised and women are being raised is having a big effect these days compared to now,
Yeah, I'm
this
not
current
sure
day and
where
age?
Elvis was going. I mean, like it's always funny when they say, "Oh, it's not 50-50, it's 100-100." Well, that equals 200%. Why not just say 500%, 500%? You got to either way. That's just all semantics. But I mean, your question was: is the way people are being raised today? Is that
Yeah,
how?
I was trying to dissect what Elvis was saying as well and how it ties into what we were saying. But
Yeah.
you know, what I do want to ask you is this. I want to go into this a little bit. So, uh, I'm 40, right? And I sort of came across this whole. I never really had a problem with girls from the time I was in high school onwards. I was a shy kid when I was younger until I got my boost of confidence and big boost of confidence from my dad. Sort of taught me how to speak up and try to pick up girls. Like it was a fun thing for me. I enjoyed connecting with women a lot. uh I did it a little bit wrong in my very early 20s. The whole bullshit thing where you lie to a woman and don't tell her about this girl and go and sleep with that girl, doing the manly thing, right? Sleep with as many girls as you can. Bullshit. It was all wrong. And it was a point, I think I was 21, 22, where I realized that just being open and honest about things, much like what you're doing now, right? Like I'm sleeping around, I'm doing this. So, if you see me with another girl, don't flip out. This is kind of the conditions that you lay down. And for the most part, that worked really well. And there'd always, there'd be a 2, 3, 4 month period where we'd be together and we'd sort of drift off. I knew I didn't want to get feelings by staying any longer than these points. So I would, um, I would find ways to drift apart and still respectfully stay friends. Right. Um, I was in a few relationships in my late teens into my 20s as well, like you were, and head over heels as well. I was engaged at 25 or 26 years old, had my heart broken pretty bad at that point in time. And then I really didn't want to get married again ever. I just thought it would be fine if I didn't have kids, much like where you're at now. Maybe I want to have kids, and I certainly didn't want to get married. There was no point. It was just a piece of paper to me. There was no real value in it if we were going to be together anyway, even if I was going to stay with someone for life. it didn't worry about the marriage. But when I sort of stopped looking and stopped wanting to sleep around, I was kind of tired of. I was tired of it. I was like done my dash. I wasn't getting the enjoyment out of it anymore. I wasn't even getting the connections I used to get, because it was getting more and more monotonous, and the pattern was just the same over and over each time, right? So I kind of just stopped. I just stopped and just hung for a bit. And it turns out that from this period where I stopped, right, is the time I met my wife with no intentions, and she was going through the same sort of phase. She didn't want a boyfriend or partner. We just met and we just got along so well, and it just kind of kicked off, right? Obviously now, this day and age, we're married with kids. I still didn't want to get married when I met her. I was still happy to not do that. But the fact we lived in different countries, we kind of had to do it for visa reasons, right? Now looking back that we've done it, I'm really glad that we have. It just brings an extra bit of unity for your family, for your kids, as a family unit. You can still get by without it, and many people do. Just for me in my own personal life, it feels complete, right? That's not to say she's going to be with me forever. We've had our moments that we've almost broken up several times, right? And I don't know what the future holds. I hope we don't. It rings bells with some of the things that you say, and others it doesn't marry up either. But I guess the point is that we're always trying with each other, and we're always trying to compromise to help each other out. Sometimes I'm more dominant. Sometimes she's more dominant. Sometimes I crack the shits for no reason. Sometimes she does. It's kind of not like one way or the other. It just fluctuates up and down that spectrum over and over for us. And I'm just hoping that it stays fairly balanced the rest of our lives, or maybe even gets better. But what I do worry about is it getting worse. And I guess none of us know what the future holds. So the point of me telling you this is that I know you've got these thoughts of, you're fairly certain you don't want to get married. Maybe you want to have kids. You're probably right around the exact same age that I was having the same thoughts, and you just never know what's around the corner. Are you open to like totally changing that if you meet someone that sweeps you off your feet, or are you done?
Well, it's not my lack of desire to get married has nothing to do with it has everything to do with the marriage laws and the way men are treated in matters of divorce here in the West, in the US. It is there's only two things that you can get in a marriage that you can't get outside of a marriage. And one is like some tax breaks, and the other is you have spousal immunity in court. And that's really it. I mean, there's nothing that anyone's been I remain unconvinced that you can have that marriage makes your relationship somewhat better, or there's any benefits that you can have in a marriage that you can't really have outside of a marriage. I understand the symbolism of it. I understand, I'll have a wedding. If she wants to change her last name to my name, totally fine. I mean, but as long, there's no benefit to me of having the government in my bedroom or in my personal affairs and personal relationship. There's no reason that the government needs to meddle in a relationship I have with another human being that they have nothing to do with. It's, to me, there's no point of it. I mean, it's just that's my whole thing. So I know plenty of guys that have done it, that they have to pay alimony, have to pay child support. Look, I know happy married couples. I know guys that are married that are miserable. I know guys that got divorced and they hated it. And I go, guys that divorced that they are glad they got out of it. To me, in regards to the way the law treats men in the West, it is a high risk, low outcome solution for men, while it's a low risk, high outcome solution for most women, because men are still making more money than women. And the way the family court usually sides when it comes to alimony and assets and children, overwhelmingly in support and in favor of women. So just based on that, like I don't think that there would be somebody. I don't see those views being changed because someone walks into my life. Like I have no problem. I enjoy being around women. I like women. If I wanted to just get laid, I would just buy women. I would just buy sex.
It's more than just, it's the connection, is the fun that you have along the way. It's not just about getting your end wet, right?
Yeah, it's certainly part of it. Like intimacy is still a goal for me as a man. Like I still want to have sex every time I hang out with one of the girls that I'm seeing. But that doesn't mean that, 95% of the time, 95% of the time you spend with a woman or a girlfriend is not having sex. So it's just as important. Is she pleasant to be around do we have a good time and we're together? Is it low stress and is it fun? That's the most important thing. And that's the stuff that I focus on. So as long as somebody is pleasant and fun and wants to stick around and we have a good time and good bedroom fun, like she'll be around in my life. Like there's no reason for me to end that.
How important is the sexual element to you? Is that the highest valued thing in these connections that you make?
Yeah, well, to me, sex is the glue that holds relationships together. I mean, I don't have female friends. I don't have women in my life that the opportunity for sex is on the table, because I don't think men and women are friends. I don't think men and women can be friends. I think there's always a sexual element, and there's no such thing as a completely platonic relationship between men and women. And I'm very honest about that. I think there are a lot of guys out there that use the guise of friendship, that they're waiting in the wings, and those are like the vultures that are trying to pick up scraps when the timing is right, or when she gets her heart broken, or when she's at her weakness, and they want to swoop in and capitalize on this friendship. And they're like putting friendship bucks in the bank. And now after 10 years, they want to withdraw sex, which is not. So, it's not the most important thing, but without it, there's no relationship.
So you're with someone that you maybe want to commit to, not get married, maybe have a kid with, or even have a kid with. The sexual elements there, but something happens with health reasons and she can't have sex anymore, but you've got everything else is in place. What do you do?
I mean, then I would find other women to have sex with. I mean, then I would say, look, like as a man, I have needs. I will still provide. I will still be, it goes back to what I'm saying. It's like, I will still, if I'm committed to somebody in that way, then I can understand that if I have other ties like kids and I have a house and things like that, or whatever that might be. But that just means that I still have needs to be met, and they're going to be met elsewhere. That doesn't mean that I'm going to run off with another girl or other girls, or I'm going to give them the same time and attention. But like that'll be the trade-off. Like, and this thing is like, this always comes up a lot where it's usually like, well, sex is, and it's always women that are saying this. It's like, oh, well, sex isn't that big of a deal, or it's just sex. It's not. No, it's like, as men, they've done studies about, is sex an actual biological need for men? And it is. When you've got, you take, I can't remember what animal they used. It might have been a chimpanzee, and they might have done it across different studies, but they put, a female chimpanzee in heat over here on his left, and then food over here on his right. And it was like, more often than not, I think like 80% of the time, the guy went to have sex with the female chimpanzee in heat. So what do we do? I mean, there are closest known relatives, right? Like, but the idea, but still, like, even so, like, we can deduce that sexual reproduction and our need to have sex and reproduce is arguably just as strong as our need to eat food to survive. Okay. So I mean, I have no problem with that.
Another span or two in the works. So this isn't like, I'm trying to give the hypotheticals just to break it down from my understanding more so.
Sure.
So you'd go and get sex somewhere else. Doesn't mean you run off with another woman or anything like that. But you guys have built a 15-year life together, 2 kids, house, good relationship. She can't have sex anymore due to health. But you're like, right, nothing personal, just because of your health reasons why you can't have sex. I'm going to get it somewhere else. And she says, if you do that, I'm done. We've had a lifetime together. It feels like you're cheating on me. I can't do that if you do that. I feel that we will not be able to connect again. What would you do?
Well, again, it's unlikely that I would put myself in a situation where I didn't have some sort of flexibility. It's likely that I would already be doing that. It's likely that, like I said before, like, it's unlikely that I will ever completely sexually monogamously commit to one woman. So, I mean, that's something, it's unlikely that I would paint myself into that box to begin with. But now we're getting into the point where, well, okay, somebody has to sacrifice something. Somebody, if I'm built to life with you could ask the same question to the other person, where it's like, okay, this person is built to life with you. He is committed to you sexually when he doesn't have to. And he basically broke his own rule to commit to you monogamously and sexually, built to life with you. And now he is robbed of that need. And yet he can't go get it somewhere else, even though you can't provide it. So, I mean, we can go in circles all day with that. I mean, like it's just then it becomes again the burden is always on the man. It's I have to if I don't give that up, if I go run around and say nope, I'm going to sleep with other women, then I'm a player or I'm abandoning my kids. But if it's oh well you just need to be a real man. A real man doesn't do that, or a real man takes care of his family. It's the same thing as when a woman cheats on a guy. The first thing everybody always says is, well, it's probably because he wasn't giving her enough attention. It's probably because he wasn't good in bed at home, or probably because he was always working too late and she felt neglected. A guy cheats on his wife. What a POS. I can't believe he would do that to her. I can't believe he would do that to the kids. That guy deserves the electric chair. So anything in society that is deemed good, good for a woman is good. Anything that a guy chooses for his own benefit would be deemed bad. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess the roundabout answer is like, I probably wouldn't be in that situation to begin with. But if I did find myself out that way, then I would exit the relationship. I mean, I would not continue to put myself in a situation where I was not getting my needs met in the relationship the same way as she would want. It's the same thing if I just said, hey, look, like I'm selling the house and we're going to live in a cardboard box, but I'll still be sexually monogamous to you. Right? Like that's removing her need for that's removing her need for security and a place to raise her children and feel safe. When she's removing sex from the relationship, it's the exact same thing.
So the 3 relationships you said you're in before that, you're head over heels with and deep, did you ever get cheated on, or did you ever cheat on them?
So the first one was really interesting. We were sleeping together for basically a year, but we were never boyfriend and girlfriend. We were sexually exclusive. We weren't seeing any other people. Then she went down during spring break, I think, like slept with some guy, or she claims she just made out with him and nothing else happened and they like cuddled or whatever. And she came back and told me, and I stayed, and because I didn't know any better. And my reaction, my response, instead of you basically don't value me, you picked some other guy, I don't care, like you knew what this was, and leaving and being like, that's it, I'm done. I said, I'm just going to double down. It's because I haven't worked hard enough. I need to be a better guy. I need to convince her that I'm the best. I need to work even harder, buy more flowers, be more emotionally connected. And then 3 months later, she said, we graduated, and she's like, I'm moving to California. See you never. So that was really the only instance of like infidelity. I have my suspicions that, nothing was ever done, set in stone with my second girlfriend, but basically her best guy friend is the guy she wound up dating after me. And then I have sneaking suspicions of my recent ex on a trip to Miami that something went off the rails, which was very close to the end of our relationship. But as far as like outright cheating, no, not really. But I had suspicion.
That was without the title, right? You're together for that period of time. You didn't title it that your boyfriend,
Yeah,
girlfriend.
we didn't title it because she was still her ex-boyfriend from high school, and so she was always holding out for this other guy, and she was basically entertaining me for attention instead of, she didn't want to commit to me basically because God forbid he ever found out or wanted to come back to her, she was going to go back to that guy. So, I mean, we were together. I mean, and everybody knew it. All of our friends knew we were inseparable. I mean, we slept together literally every night. But anyway, yeah, nothing is
like, when 2 people break up, just because they say, well, we're single now, and they go and sleep with somebody else, it doesn't mean it feels okay because the title's not there. It's still all the emotions there, even though in this situation, you guys were together without the official tag, right? So I guess from that point,
it's different for women. Like when a woman sleeps with another guy, like that's it. Like it's just that men and women are not blank slates. They're not equal. That's one of my main points.
That's what I'm getting. That's the turning point. That's exactly what I was about to ask. Right? There's no going back from that anymore. Once you find that out, you can never be back to the full sort of relationship you were developing before. Something's crossed over. Something's missing. Something's not ever going to be complete. Right?
Right.
Because I was going to go with some of the.
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Sorry. No, sorry, I lost it now because I got a little sidetracked then. I was going to go somewhere with that, but I think I was going to go down the track of like, being in these relationships that you're still sleeping around, but you want exclusivity from them. How are you ever going to really build that security connection, or let's call it like comradeship, for lack of a better word, with that person when they're always going to feel that void of completion because they know that you're still giving or had given to other people along the way?
Yeah, I mean, look, like there comes to a point, like I said, it would come to a point where they would get certain things out of me that other girls would not, right? They would be elevated to a status where they're basically like, you're my main girl. Like, I'm not taking any girls out on dates. I'm not going on vacations with any other girls, right? Like, if I'm going out and I see a hot girl in a bar and I want to chat her up, buy her a drink, and then we go to a hotel, that's one thing. But I'm not going to be parading her around. I'm not going to be taking her to the same spots that I take you. I'm not going to be posting anybody on Instagram or whatever. But like, if I decide that I want to go out and like get some strange one night, like that's my thing. Now, I'm not communicating this overtly ever. Like, I'm never going to sit a girl down and say, here's my PowerPoint presentation. I hope you're in line with it. But that takes a while to get there. Like, I have to elevate a girl and sort of promote her to that status. And she gets to that status by being nice to be around, being pleasant, being fun. And the more that she can continue to do that, the better she will overall do. So that's what it really boils down to. And it just goes back to personal boundaries. It's, you know, if this is not your jam and you don't want to be around with this, then if you feel like your emotional needs are not being met and you don't want to do this anymore, sorry to see you go, but you know, this is the way it's going to be. And that, I mean, it really, really boils down to that. Like, this is what I want for myself and my life, at least for the time being. Who knows what it'll be in 5 years, but this is going to be the way that it is. And I'm not going to, you know, you're free to go anytime.
You say you're free to go anytime. I'm just trying to think a little bit more long term, 2 or 3 years into a relationship that's going good. What do you have, or anyone who's into the red pill theory, what does one of those guys have with these boundaries created that someone else doesn't have and can fully commit?
Well, they don't have options. It's really what it boils down to. Like, guys that are quick to commit or that are focused solely on commitment, whether they do or whether they don't, what they're communicating is they don't have options with other women and they cannot go out there and date casually or date multiple women at the same time, because a guy that has the ability to create options and date multiple women, by balance of probabilities, he's going to do that. Because again, guys are hardwired for variety. We want different women. We want multiple women. We want just not one single partner forever. It's biologically, like, we can override that and that's fine. But we are, you know, most guys can't pull that off. Most guys cannot. It's the reason you see these athletes and rappers or whoever, these very, very high value, highly successful, highly wealthy guys that have, or like NBA players that are always getting in trouble, and you see him in the tabloids about he's talking to multiple women or he's doing this and he's texting this girl one thing and texting this girl the other. But, you know, so that's the big difference. Like, you have as much power, your bargaining power equals your options. You know, when women see a guy that really wants to rush into commitment and he wants to put all his eggs into one basket, that at a subconscious level turns her off, because essentially what women really want to do is they want to compete for men. They want to win the guy. There's a reason that women like the bad boys and not the nice guy, because they want to win that guy over. They want to feel like women want to feel like their guy is better than them, essentially. They want to feel like this is a top shelf guy. This is an analogy that I bring up all the time, is a girl wants to be the one that kills Batman. So stay with me on this. So in the comic books, video games, movies, every one of these major henchmen that Batman, every one of these major villains like the Joker and the Penguin, they all have henchmen. They all have guys that work for them. They have these low-life thugs that Batman just kicks the shit out of them every time. He's never lost a fight against one of these guys, but they always keep coming back. And there's nobody that gets hired that thinks like, oh, wow, I can't wait to get the shit kicked out of me by Batman. No, they all think they're going to be the one guy. They're like, nope, I'm going to be the one. I know he's beaten 10, 15,000 of guys just like me, but I'm going to be the one to take him down. And that's what girls want. They want to say, this is the guy that nobody else can tame, They want to look at that guy and say, he could have any girl he wants in this room, in this state, in this world, but he chose me. So a guy that's really quick to commit.
Why do you think they want to be the one to do that?
Because that proves that he has options. Women want the guy that other guys want to be and other girls want to bang, because that is a demonstration of value. A man that is highly sought after by multiple women is inherently attractive. That means he is valuable. That means multiple women want his attention and want to be with him and basically have his children from an evolutionary perspective. A guy that's not very good with women, or a guy that doesn't have social proof or friends or a circle, or is not attractive to women, is a woman's not going to be attracted to that guy. So there's a reason why, that's a signal. There's a reason why guys say, like, hey man, like, I didn't get a lot of attention from girls when I was single, but the minute I got into a relationship, it's like they all came out of the woodwork. It's like, because by having a girlfriend or having girls around, you are demonstrating that you are worthy of a mate. So now they're interested in you. So that's what it boils down to.
Sure. So I'm going to put myself on the chopping block a little bit here, right? And I'm not trying to blow my trumpet in any way, but certainly when I was younger in my 20s, I was the guy that used to want to hook up with girls and sleep with like 2 or 3 girls at the same time, not the same night, but like within, seeing a couple of girls at the same time.
Yep.
I never lied about it. I never told each other who they were. I was always respectful about it, if that makes sense, right? I wasn't really blunt about things. So what would make the difference between someone in the red pill laying their boundaries down, like, you have to have exclusivity with me, but I'm going to sleep around, and then never really changing that sort of train of thought, even if it's years down the track, you still want new flavor. You reach out to eat a different bowl of spaghetti one night. Whereas with me, to still offer that and be understandable and flexible as feelings were developing, and has done in the past, right? That I will start to give the exclusivity to that woman, right? So here's 2 of us doing the same thing, except you're never going to commit, and I will. How are you going to? Are you never scared or worried? Not scared, but are you never concerned that the woman will turn around and choose a guy like what I was doing compared to what you're doing? And I'm not trying to compare us exactly, but you know what I mean.
No, not at all. I understand that is always a risk, and that's part of this. And that's happened to me multiple times over the last year as I've dated women a little older. I'm not talking about like 40s and 50s, like early 30s, for example. Early 30s, late 20s, early 30s is usually when women are starting to say, all right, I've had my fun, I've had my party years, I've had my HOE phase. My clock is ticking. It's time. I can't compete with these 23-year-old girls running around in clubs anymore. It's time for me to get serious, find a guy, make an honest woman out of me, that kind of thing. And I dated a couple of those, and the conversation of where are we going, where is this, happened really fast. And I was like, I like you. I like spending time with you. Things are going to be like this for a while, and I hope you're cool with that. And if not, like, I understand. And so it had nothing to do, like, our sexual interactions were great. We always had a great time, but you always run the risk, depending on how old women you are, the women you're dating, and where they are in their lives and stage, where women reach a point where they stop looking for like the hot alpha guy, at least for a little while, because they're worried that they're not going to be able to have kids, and they shift and start looking for more of that like provider type. So you always run that risk. It's the same thing. There's, that's hypergamy in a nutshell. It's like you play the role of the alpha guy and you don't provide the comfort, then eventually she's going to look for the guy to provide comfort. And that's just your thing. And you're okay with that, and you're outcome independent. And that's the thing. It's like, look, she's great, but there's another one out there too. And there's a lot of great girls out there that I'm going to have fun with. And that's totally cool. She's doing whatever she thinks is best for her, and there you go. So it's you always run that risk. Absolutely.
Sure. Just to slightly come off track on this now, is that I met on Stereo, and by the way, the listeners on Stereo, sorry, I know you've left a couple of messages, but for some reason I haven't hooked up the simulcast properly, and the messages aren't.
Do you want to
through,
switch over real quick, or is there any way to play it? If you like, can you pop in and pop out, or that end the cast?
I can actually probably unplug this and do that. So give me a sec. I could
give it a shot.
All right, let's do this. It's where.
I know you the word deduce, but you used it incorrectly. I'm nearly certain that you didn't eliminate all possibilities until you were left with the conclusion that men need sex as much as they need food and oxygen. While I'm sure that you'd like to believe that, and some men would like to believe that, that still wouldn't justify some of the things you're talking about. But once again, deductive reasoning is when you eliminate all things and you're left with one possibility. And I really failed to see where you did that.
Let me just plug this in so you can hear a response.
Oh, okay, cool. I mean, like, thanks for the grammar lesson, dude. But that doesn't correcting my grammar doesn't take away from the point. But that's okay. We can go on to the next one.
That's it. There's a couple of older ones I might hit actually. So there's
go ahead.
Played. Okay, let's do that. So there was Truthful Sweet at the start. It was right at the start of the podcast.
Hello, Rocstedi. Why are you by yourself? Just trying to help.
Thank you. That's because I started the show so we could stream over to Fireside, which is where if anyone listening on stereo wants to interact with it with this show, you can jump over to Fireside to this show. So we've got one more from Agent Carmichael.
I can tell you for sure you are not going to have a lasting relationship if you say that, like, all final decisions are up to me. I make the deciding thing, or she can input, but I'm the one who makes the final call. Like, you won't have a lasting relationship if that's how you play it. I mean, you want to be all buff and like, I'm the king, but like, I'm just telling realistically, it's not how it's going to work out for you. I'm just saying.
Plug this back in. Okay, so yeah, just I don't think that's what Moff is trying to say. I think he's just laying down his guidelines on what he wants, and you're pretty much zero tolerant. You've got zero tolerance outside of your boundaries, right? If it's like this way, and I can respect it within these boundaries, but if it's not met, then that's cool. You move on. I don't want to deal with that. That's kind of your train of thought, right?
I think there's a misconception when I say I'm going to be the final decision maker. It's again, I go back to the example of a woman in my life is going to be my trusted advisor, right? Like, I'm overall going to be making the decisions about my life. And if she's in it, then if that affects her, then again, that comes with the caveat that I'm responsible for the way things go. And if I make a wrong call, then I will have to suffer the consequences. That's the way it goes. I don't get to make the decision and then fuck things up and then blame her for it. I have to take full responsibility if I want full authority. And that's fine. Like, look, it's a shaming tag. Like, oh, like you're going to be alone forever, or you're never going to have a lasting relationship. Like, look, man, like you don't, what would make you say that? Right. Because look, like that's how relationships have existed for thousands of years. Like we've had, since the beginning of time, that's how decisions have been made. The men have led tribes, they've led relationships, they've led marriages, they've made decisions, and things have worked out pretty well by that model. It's only until, we talked about this earlier, like the divorce rate is going up, the marriage rate is plummeting, and I think feminism has a lot to do with it, and women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, 40s and 50s are more unhappy today than they've ever been before. Less people are getting married than ever been before. So, this whole idea of 50-50 partnership and women need to make decisions in relationships, the proof isn't there that is a good model that works. But appreciate the comment.
Okay. We do have one more here.
Yep.
I hate having to hold this up, but just
I
bear
can
with
hear
us
it.
on stereo. Okay. Here we go. Worm.
I know you'd like to believe that also, but if you're not understanding the words you're using, then what meaning does anything you have to say have? I really want you to think about this. You need to make sense and know what you're talking about. Okay, even if you think you made sense, which sometimes you don't know what you're talking about. You're using words incorrectly. I wasn't correcting your grammar. I'm not correcting your sentence structure. It's ridiculous, man. I'm pointing out that the words, the jargon you're using it incorrectly. You really shouldn't use it.
Okay, how about this, man? I will
Let me
say,
just let me play
yeah,
it
go
again.
ahead.
Let's see. Now you should
Instead
be
of
able to hear
instead
results.
of deduce, we can use the word infer. How about this? It's a nonsensical notion to think because I misuse one word that my entire argument falls flat and doesn't hold water. So there, I'll correct it for you. We can infer that my point. I mean, there you go. If you want to be the language police, we totally can, man. But like, if you actually want to talk about the argument as opposed to, oh, you used a word incorrectly, that's low IQ behavior, man. We can actually talk about the argument, or you can be the word police. But you let me know which one you want to decide.
Okay, let me just drop that volume. Let me take another slight track here, which I didn't bring up earlier. Is that I heard you on a show a while back saying that there's different kind of levels or different offshoots of the red pill. Now, there's parts of it you don't like where it's going. Now, explain to me exactly what you meant by that, because I don't know what offshoots there are. But I also want to jump in maybe after you're talking a little bit to give you an update on one of these situations I came across maybe 3-4 months ago with a couple of guys on an app that were just going for gold, saying things like, "If my wife doesn't give me sex after 3 weeks, then I take it from her." I mean, it's just like marital rape. It was like she should be giving it to me, and if she doesn't, then I'm going to go elsewhere, but I should take it from her. It was like they felt like they had these rights, like they own their women. Is that the sort of tracks that you're talking about, the red pill spiraling off to, or is that included within the concept that you're talking about today?
No, again, it's one of those things where like you can use fire however you want, right? Like I guess the offshoots is guys that are taking these tracks and they are doing it under the guise of being like you can be red pilled and you can still be an asshole. Like you can be red pilled and you can still hold beliefs that women should be property, that women should be seen and not heard, that women owe you sex, that women are creatures that deserve to be exterminated off the planet. You can be red pilled and still hold all those beliefs individually, but there's nothing in red pill that says like women are property. There's nothing, and that's where it's like again, I try to get red pilled down to the simplest form where it's just seeing the world for the way that is. It's understanding women and what their mating strategy is. It's understanding men and what their mating strategies are. And that's it. It's me giving you the playbook and a predictive framework. If you choose to use that and you choose to identify with and you choose to level up and be better, then great. If you choose to not and you choose to complain and you choose to get on Reddit or you just say everything is shit and you think marital rape is okay, then I got no use for you. But there's like finding the red pill, and then guys will usually find some of these offshoots like men going their own way, like the black pill, like guys that are the black manosphere. I mean, there's just fresh and fit. I mean, there's a bunch of different guy PUAs, right? They're all sort of start at the central point of being red pilled, and then they just fall into different sects and subsects, and that sort of thing. So I mean, it's why I I talk about the red pill, but I prefer to use things like I've unplugged, right? Like I see the world for the way it is. I've unplugged from the matrix, right? I don't like to say like, oh, I'm red pilled because because you Google search red pill and some of the first things that come up are like, oh, this guy, he says that like he, exactly like you said, should be able to take sex from his wife. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, red pill is teaching people to rape, right? Which it's not. It's
This
fire.
is this is where I'm leading to with this. It's like, the red pill ideology of this whole concept is quite a dominant one in the respect of the man. Like it's like, again, I'm going to use, for lack of a better word, my way the highway, right? It does have that feel to it. It does have that feel like it stops short with that lack of empathy to completely fulfill that circuit in a relationship, right? So do you think it's dangerous for men, especially young men, looking for these answers that are starting to join the offshoots and unclear information of what you're trying to say in your particular theory of the red pill to these other offshoots for what it might hold in the future for women?
Yeah, it certainly could be. I mean, look, like you look at guys that don't get sex and they go and shoot up schools, or they get into vans and they run people over and they go on rampages. I mean, it certainly can be dangerous, but that doesn't mean that that's like saying, should we ban cars because cars because people die in car accidents, or should we ban alcohol because people, die of alcohol poisoning? It's the same thing. It's just how you choose to use it. If you choose to abuse the knowledge or use it for things that fuck up other people's lives, then yeah, it's certainly dangerous. It's like, are you going to use fire to heat your house, or are you going to use it to burn your house or somebody else's house down? It's everything. That's when it comes down to agency and personal choice. It's how are you going to use, like, we're not writing prescriptions here. We're just saying we're giving you the information, and however you choose to use it and do with it is fully up to you. But like, I have no responsibility over somebody hearing this and me saying, yeah, like, women are hypergamous and you need to be better. Like, I don't bear any responsibility from some kid that reads The Rational Male or that hears me talk and thinks like, oh, well, all women are just going to cheat on me, so we should kill them, because I've never advocated for violence towards women. I've never advocated.
But you're saying it's this fire that you choose what to do with it, right? Like, you choose what to do with the fire. And it's like, it's not really just a fire. I mean, the particular guys that are coming forward with this are holding a bonfire-sized fire because they're burning with rage already, maybe because they've been upset or hurt. Or again, I'm going to throw in there, I think some guys have narcissistic tendencies. Maybe they're a little bit safer than the guys that are hurting, right? So you're kind of almost giving a gun to an unstable person in a way to come and learn this red pill theory. And then if it gets skewed off to one part of these routes that it takes, can be quite dangerous. Do you not think that there's a responsibility by the people that are creating this red pill theory to add some sort of compassion in there to just soften this a little bit for people so they don't go down those dark tracks so quickly? Do you know what I'm trying to say with that?
Well, but soften it in what way? I mean, we're just talking about black and white and the things in the world and the way that it is. I mean, it's like we can't lie to people.
No, right. So there's black and white, but like it's almost like it's missing gray, and it should have a shade of gray there somewhere, just to close that gap. I can't put my finger on it exactly, but it definitely seems like there's a stop short of a circuit that should be complete to really make this make sense, and it makes sense from a man's point of view, but I don't think it makes sense from a woman's point of view.
Well, the red pill is not for women. That's the thing. I mean, it's not. Again, like when you're talking about beginning of human history and the species of humans and Homo sapiens, 99% of women have reproduced, where only 40% of men have reproduced. So women are solving their reproductive problem. They don't have an issue with, we talked about this earlier, they don't have an issue with getting mates. They don't have an issue with getting sex. They don't have an issue with finding guys. It's men that are the ones that need the help and that need to learn these things. Women are naturally red pilled because they're already doing these things. Like, women are like, their sexual liberation. Women are already dating multiple men, or they always have multiple men potentially hitting them up, or they have these orbiters that are already in their space. But I mean, it's the same thing. We're talking about, like, when we talk about men and women, we're talking about 80 percentile. We're talking about the vast majority. There are exceptions to every rule for sure, but you treat every gun like it's loaded, and you clear it and make sure, once you're sure and you've tested it that it's not loaded, then and only then do you act in a different way where the gun's not loaded. Somebody hands you a gun, you're not going to pull it to your temple and pull the trigger on the off chance that it's not loaded. You're going to check it, you're going to clear it, you're going to test it, you're going to check again, test it again, and then and only then are you going to be confident that that gun is not loaded. So that's the way we look at these things. It's like, this is by no means an absolute 99.9 or 100% certainty when it comes to this. But there is enough science to back it up where we can say, you know what, on the balance of probabilities, this is the situation you're going to find yourself in, and here's how to avoid it. And you know what, like, if you think you want to find, if you can find a unicorn, go for it. But it's not this. We're just giving you the information. We're saying, look, man, if you're not your best self, and this is where we harp on guys all the time too. I say, dude, you have to continuously be being and working on being the best version of yourself. If you want to have success, if you want to be somebody that can actually exercise boundaries, if you want to be a guy that's worth his salt and that adds value to the world and to a woman's life, you need to be constantly improving and leveling up. No woman is going to feel sorry for you because you're a nice guy if you can't provide anything. If you cannot make her feel attracted to you, if you cannot provide for her emotionally, financially, with security, you don't have a use to a woman. So it's more so about what are you going to do about it? Okay. And here's the thing too. Not every guy that finds the red pill is on death's door, has got a gun in his mouth. I certainly wasn't. So everybody gets held fire, but some guys, it's a match. Some guys, it's a bonfire. It just depends on where they are in their personal journey when they unplug. But it all depends on that guy and how he can turn it around. Is he going to burn his house down, or is he going to, make torches out of it? Is he going to use it for good or for evil? And there's plenty of guys in this space that say, hey man, if you want better results, do this. If you want to be single forever, fine, go do it. But I don't think we have a personal responsibility. It's the same way as I have no personal responsibility to a guy that wants to eat junk food and never add anything to society and blow up to be 400 pounds and leech off the government and my health care and my taxpayer money. I got nothing to say to that guy. I have the same thing. I don't have anything else to say to anybody that wants to, choose not to do the work and improve themselves. I have no bearing whatsoever. I care about the people that are in my group, my social circle, my tribe, and that's as far as my responsibility goes.
Okay, so I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with some of those lessons that you just said there about trying to get a man to be the best that he can. I think that's an important message for men in life. This is where confidence is built as well.
Sure.
Certainly strive to become the best person you are, but one thing out of striving to be the best you can be in this kind of red pill theory is I think that it lacks integrity for a person. Integrity overall. Maybe within business is one thing, but it's almost like treating the woman like a part of a business, it's lacking the integrity to stand up and be that example that you might want for your daughter or the example that you want your son to be. Do you not think it's lacking something like that?
But in what way?
I think
what
that
would you say it
if I
lacks?
was to be sorry?
What would you say it lacks? Because again, this
Okay.
goes back to, where it's always men's responsibility to, we have to take care of women, or we have to make sure that people's feelings aren't hurt, or whatever it is, right? So
I think it's up to a man to show strength in his family. I think it shows integrity when he's the one that will the way that he speaks to his wife, the way that he speaks to strangers, the way he might help somebody, the way that he might commit to somebody, the way he might show loyalty to someone, is all stuff for your children to see, to grow up to be, the best humans that they can be, right? And I think that just the start of a relationship where you're kind of bounding someone to exclusivity to you, but you yet can share yourself around with other people. Lacks the integrity completely, and it's fine when you're young, you don't want anything serious. I get all that sort of stuff, but we're starting to get a little bit older now. You're about to hit 30. These are the times where you start to think more serious, right? So in your younger years, you were in relationships, but that was kind of the time I was playing around, having fun. As I got older, I wanted to get more serious, and I think with your age grows integrity, maturity, and your whole outlook on life changes so much from the last 10 years for me. So much, I was still really immature when I was 30, but now I'm 40, and maybe I'm still partly immature, but a lot more than before. I think in that time is kind of where I really understood the importance of integrity, and not that I really lacked it before, but I didn't have it built over time to the point I am now. And I'm just a little concerned that this lack of integrity is breeding a generation of people that might swing the other way and not treat everyone with the respect that they require, with loyalty again and trust, right, and connection. Does that make sense?
well, nobody's entitled to blind loyalty and blind respect. Those are two things that are earned by your. But I mean, when we're talking about integrity, again, we're going back to this point and see what we're doing is we're falling in this trap of it's integrity to be with one woman. If you're not doing that, it's you lack integrity as a man if you decide you want to have multiple sexual partners and casually date. Why? Because it's bad for women. Because women want to have one guy. So a guy that's seen who wants to date casually and date multiple women, now we're saying that guy has a lack of integrity, when in reality, that's men's sexual strategy from the dawn of time. It's how it's always been. Guys have wanted to sleep with multiple women, and guys that could not do that, guys that couldn't spread their seed, they went extinct. They didn't pass along their bloodlines because it was a select few. 40% of guys were sleeping with 100% of the women. So this is how we procreated. This is a natural evolutionary sex drive. It's what it is for men. It's literally a sex drive. And so we are naturally programmed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's in our inherent biology and our inherent sex drive. It's the same way there's nothing inherently wrong for women to want to settle down with one guy sexually, exclusively, monogamously. And yet we still shame men for their natural sexual drive of multiple women, but we don't shame women for their natural sexual drive of one guy. And we throw these words around like integrity because we're trying to shame men and to get them to play along by women's rules. And this is the gynocentric social order and the female primary social order we live in, where anything that's good for women is considered good and with integrity, and anything that is potentially good for the guy or a guy wanting to do something good for himself is considered, disloyal or non-committal, or it's a bad thing. And so that's where this is all leading back to. It's, when people say men run the world or there's this patriarchal society, it's not true. There's no proof of that, because what is good for women is what dictates policy, what dictates social opinion. I mean, there's no reason that we should think that a guy who wants to have multiple partners, I don't think that's a lack of integrity at all. I think that's a guy choosing what he wants to do with his life and with his sexual partners. And it's something that it's gone on for millennia.
Yeah, I'm going to have to completely disagree with that. I don't think integrity is a way to shame men. I think integrity is something that someone has to want to do that. They're not doing it to score points. They're doing it for themselves. They're doing it for that feeling of knowing that they're a stand-up person. I used to be a fucking bit of a scumbag when I was younger, for sure, but it's taken this time to really.
But when you say that, what do you mean by scumbag? Just because you were sleeping around with multiple women?
No. I'm talking about in life a little bit, right? So I didn't hold integrity. I didn't give a shit with certain things. It was too bad for other things. Guys, girls, situations, whatever. I'm still empathetic to a situation, but there was plenty of times where I didn't show integrity, and maybe just from lack of understanding, not because I was trying to be malicious in any way intentionally, but certainly over time, you do understand that becomes, and maybe it's just me that finds that as an important value, but I just can't see the integrity in doing that to someone with exclusivity and then sharing yourself around with other people. I think that integrity may be in a situation where you didn't want anything serious and you were honest and put that on the table. Everyone understood where their feelings were. And then if something was starting to develop, to then like check in again, because you do keep going off all of these, these instincts that we have, right? But totally overlooking the emotional intelligence that we've been growing to over time as well. So like we're much more intelligent emotionally now as creatures than we ever were before as chimpanzees or whatever, right? So that plays a huge factor. In fact, I absolutely agree that instinct drive is there, but I think that the higher you are with intelligence and emotion will override that with logic compared to just giving into your like reptilian brain.
Yes, but what you're doing is you're only using that standard on one side. You're not using that standard equally. The shoe's not on both feet. What I mean by that is men have a natural drive to sleep with men. Our sexual strategy as men has always been wanting to sleep with multiple women, unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. Women's sexual strategy is and has always been hypergamy, finding the one guy to settle down with that will be able to protect her children, ensure her survival, etc. We still have those mechanisms in our brains today. Men still have the sex drive to sleep with a number of different women. Women still have the drive to settle down with one man. Now, you're telling guys you need to override your innate strategy because that's not good, but we're not holding. You could say the same thing. You're not turning around and saying, hey, women, like, get over it, like override your need for security and be okay with a guy going around banging around. What's wrong with you? Like, that's not you don't have integrity if you're not okay with a guy banging a bunch of different women. So we're not holding these both sides. And that's the point that I'm trying to get to. There's a standard for men that is not the same standard for women. And that's okay. We're different, but that's exactly what I'm trying to get to. If we're going to hold a standard, we hold everybody to that same standard of what's good and what's right.
I do get you. I understand you can never really bring that standard both ways because there's two different drives that we want to lock down, right? You're talking about the sexual drive.
One is being considered good and one is being considered bad, even though they're both natural. That's the problem.
Okay. So here's I'm going to use myself in an all honest example, right? So I'm married now. I feel like I want to sleep with other women? It doesn't really cross my mind. No. If I see a hot chick walk down the street, she gets me twinging. But because of the connection I have with my wife, the respect that I have for her, and the intelligence I've got to obviously run through the logic in an instant of a second through my mind to say, I'm not going to lose my family, my kids, and all that stuff for one bang of an ass. For what? Just to shoot my rocks off when I've actually got the connection and love at home, right? So there's my natural instincts wanting to kick in, and that's not that often. I don't hold sex as a high value. I don't think as you or maybe many other men, it's definitely important, but I hold other things of a high value, right? So yes, it might cross my mind if some hot chick walks past for a second, but I'm not going to act on it. Now, maybe I can give an example if I'm really drunk at a bar one night and I'm on the other side of the country or another country, and would I do it? There's probably a higher chance of that drive wanting it to happen. But again, I just wouldn't put myself in the situation because of the respect I have for my wife and the connection I have. She would never know, but I'd know. And I could never completely connect or give myself to her knowing that I'd done that. Do I flirt around a little bit? Yeah, I have fun. It's just mucking around. Everything's innocent. I never, ever cross that line. So that's an example of what you're saying with the drive and the instinct, right? But here's my example with the emotional intelligence that comes in and talks yourself out of it because you've got a bigger fish to fry, so to speak. You don't want to lose what you've got for a piece of ass.
Right, but a personal standard doesn't necessarily mean just because you think that that's something for you, it doesn't mean a guy that wants to sleep around with other women, it means he lacks integrity. Like if we're using a personal anecdotal standard to carry on for all men, and I just don't agree with it.
So I don't think I meant just someone sleeping around with women isn't displaying integrity. I think the way that he does it is what's going to show his integrity. So, I think just in my opinion, maybe we're going off track here a little bit, but when I was sleeping with women when I was single, I always put it on the table at the start. I never, because I learned this really young when I lied, when I was like 20, 21. I lied, I got caught. I had these chicks fucking stalking me. They were ringing my work. They went crazy, right? I was like, fuck that. Right. From now on, I just say it. I just say, like, I'm seeing someone and, it's not serious and I don't want anything serious. But like, so they understand if they came to those terms, they knew exactly what they were coming to. Right. And there was no issues, but until feelings started to develop. Right. But then it was like, I had to throw the gentle reminder in about the situation. And then I had to make a choice. Either they were going to get too close to me or I was going to get too close to them if I didn't want it. And I have to use my integrity to break it up as much as you wouldn't want to. Not that we were together, but just, sleeping with each other. You have to make these decisions to try and stop yourself or the other person really getting hurt. People still got hurt along the way, like maybe minimally, maybe a couple of times more worse. But in general, it was always trying to taper that off in the most respectful way so that no one was really getting damaged. That's kind of one example of what I mean by integrity in these situations. So you can still do it. But what you're saying is that it's kind of almost like a demand. It's going to be this way. You're with me now, and I'm with them too. If you don't like it, leave. I wouldn't say it completely lacks integrity, but it does seem. Well, I think it does lack a bit of integrity, and it's completely, I think, unfair. That's in my perspective anyway. But I know you don't care because if you can get it that way and you're happy with that, who cares what the rest of the world thinks, right? But
again, fairness is irrelevant. Again, like, and here's the thing: like, women do not naturally want to sleep around with a bunch of guys. The only time a woman is I don't have these conversations with. I make it clear, or I allow them to infer, not deduce, for our listener in stereo if he's still here. I allow them to infer by my lack of availability that there may be other girls, there may be not other girls, but that's my business and that's not really yours until, if we're not dating, we're not boyfriend and girlfriend, what I do in my free time has nothing to do with you. So to that point, when the conversation has come up and I get a girl that just bothers the shit out of me, that just goes like, well, are you sleeping with other girls? Like they'll always say, well, I'm not sleeping with other guys. Okay, that's nice. Well, I don't know. That's, good. Like I actually expect that. That's good to know. Well, what are you doing? Are you sleeping with other girls? And I'm like, and I won't. And then they'll just keep on and keep on. And I'll just say, look, I might be or might not. I might not be. What's the difference? She's like, well, if you're going to do whatever you want and sleep with a bunch of girls, then I'm going to do whatever I want and sleep with a bunch of guys. And there's only one reason that, see, it's not about fairness. It's about leverage. What a girl and what a woman is trying to do in that situation, she's trying to play on my natural male fears of being cuckolded, basically sleeping with a girl that some other guy is sleeping with, and in my lizard brain, potentially, quote unquote, raising a kid that's not mine, even though, again, we live into 2021, but the internalized subconscious is still there, where we still have a fear of, that's why we are so repulsed naturally by women that are promiscuous. It's why we don't like it. That's why we're turned off. It's not because it's a double standard, it's because it has biological and psychological implications. But it's almost always as a result of a threat to try to get my commitment. And it turns into, so cool, if you can do what you want, I can do what I want. But here's the difference. I want to sleep with multiple women because I have that biological drive as a man. She doesn't want to sleep with multiple men. She doesn't have the same biological drive. It is almost always in every situation being used as a bargaining chip to try to buy my commitment. So then in my mind, it's like, okay, what she's telling me is you either commit to me or I'm going to go bang other dudes. And those are the only two options. And that's when I say, no, like I don't dig girls that bang other guys. And if that's the way this is going to be, like we don't have to see each other anymore. So in fair, I still don't see it as a fair thing. Because
what do you think they drive to do that then? Why do you think they're trying to use that leverage? Are they trying to lock you in for them out of jealousy, or because they want upper hand, or what is it for you? What do you think it is for them? Sorry.
They want my commitment. So girls don't get jealous when girls get jealous, it's different than when guys get jealous. So, there's been research out there. David Buss did a study where the most common question, or like the most common question asked by guys when their partner says they cheated on him, the guys will ask, did you bang him? Did you sleep with him? Girls will ask, do you love her? So girls are far more able and willing to look the other way when it comes to the physical piece. Girls don't want to lose the emotional connection. Guys want the physical. Guys want sexual exclusivity. Women don't want to lose your attention, your emotional support, and your resources. That's why there's plenty of women out there that I've met and talked to that are like, yeah, you know what he does on the road, whatever, we don't talk about it. As long as he doesn't jeopardize my health, he doesn't embarrass me, he doesn't embarrass the kids, he never brings this stuff back home. Whatever he does on his free time or whatever he does when he's not here, as long as there's an understanding, that's fine. Now that's a long-term relationship and or a marriage, but women are far more willing to be non-sexually exclusive if she's still getting the support. Like if this guy's buying another girl a house and a car and jewelry, that's when it's like, okay, the emotional side of cheating is far more important to women than it is for men. So what a woman is afraid of, if I'm not sexually exclusive, she's afraid of this guy is going to like that other girl better, and then he's going to start giving her that attention more, and then he's going to start taking his attention away from me, and that's what she's going to lose. It's not the fact that I'm sleeping with another girl and her. She's in fear of losing my attention. She thinks I'm going to like this other girl more. That's why a lot of girls out there are like weird about threesomes when they don't bring girls into the bedroom that they perceive as better looking than them, because they want their guy to still look at them as the hot piece. They don't want to look either, and they set rules. Okay, well, you can't penetrate her, or you can't go down on her, or whatever it is, because they see that as a gateway to losing resources. So that's what that bargaining chip is about. It's how do I continue to keep this guy's attention and not lose him to another girl? If it's just sex, fine. But they also understand that potentially is a gateway to losing more time, attention, and resources. But it's never just about the sex. It's always about the other things. It's about the emotional the emotional loss she's going to have, not about the physical.
Okay. All right. We just touched a little over 2 hours at the moment. I think we'll take a question on stereo, and if anyone from Fireside wants to jump up on stage and ask Moff any questions before we start to wrap up the podcast, just hit the little microphone button, and I'll see that, and we'll be able to get you up. But for now, we have a message from stereo, which I have to do manually here. It is from Wormillion.
If you never let a woman know that you're available, that you're not talking to other women, then they'll never consider you for a boyfriend or a husband or whatever you might possibly want out of women in the future. You're acting like it's none of their business, but you're going to make it their business if you want them to be in your life in that way. You're going to limit yourself severely with these ideas.
I'll just plug this back in. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to respond to that at all.
Yeah, Worm, I already talked about that. Like, I already mentioned, like, if the time comes where I'm going to elevate a woman to that main girl status or girlfriend status or whatever it is, then that's a conversation we're going to have. And then boundaries are going to come into play, and then we're going to kind of talk about it. But I mean, if we're just talking about dating it non-exclusively and dating casually, then yeah, like, it's my business. But I make the conscious choice to promote her to that next level. And with that, she gets more responsibility. And with that, she gets more of my commitment. So, I mean, it's still, it's in the progression. So, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm not just saying like, I'm going to bang a bunch of girls forever and not tell anybody and then expect to like get married. No. Like, there's a natural progression to the system, but it's going to take more than 2 months of dating.
Okay. So, any last questions from the Firesiders here that are sitting in the listeners? Just hit the little microphone button. I can bring you up for 30 seconds to a minute. You can ask what you like, and then I can pop you back down. But as they may or may not do that, Moff, I just wanted to say thank you for your time today, man. I think it was a good conversation. I enjoy going back and forth with you on this. You know, it's something that we can do amicably, you know, and maybe see a point of view or not. So yeah, I'd love to talk again at some point if you're free. And I hope that you've liked my Fireside here today. It's a good little platform to chat on and do the video podcast.
Yeah, this has been great, man. Like, I appreciate it. I always like chopping it up with you and having conversations, even with the time difference. Sometimes it's tough, but yeah, I'm interested to chat more about kind of like the setup you've got. I got a buddy of mine that we do some stuff on stereo, but he also wants to simulcast some stuff on YouTube. So, you know, I'm kind of leaving that up to him and figuring out what that setup is going to look like. But yeah, dude, this has been great. I appreciate it. Yeah, you and I can talk amicably. Like, I know Worm and I like to go back and forth a little bit. I don't think Worm really gives me a fair shake, but that's okay. But I've really enjoyed it, man, as always. And, you know, I think we can definitely come together and share ideas, even though we might disagree, and continue to do so.
Sure, man. No, I do appreciate that. Yeah, I'll give you a call after this to run you through the setup as well. But this is great because it's simulcast. Even though it didn't do it this time again for some reason, it does simulcast over to YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook at the same time as this is going live.
Yeah,
but
it's a little late over here. I want to bring my partner into it, and like maybe we can do it all three of us together. But
that's fine. Yeah, no problem. No problem. Moff, let us as the listeners know where we can find you on any social media or anything that you want to share, any YouTube links or anything like that.
Yeah, so I'm not crazy active on it. I mean, you guys see my name here. If you guys want to, you know, my first _ last name, Chris_Moffat on Instagram, if you want to follow along. I do have a small micro site that's on the Beacons platform. It's a mobile site. It's Beacons, BEACONS.AI /Moff, MOFF. There, guys can book me for, you know, just some coaching, or you can follow me along on stereo. Usually I'm hanging out on Rich Cooper's channel, Entrepreneurs in Cars, on Mondays at 8 p.m. And then he and I will chop it. And usually after that show, I do a stereo show Mondays, usually 9:30. We go for like an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, depending on how far it goes, man. But yeah, this has been great. I'm not much in the way of a content creator. I like being guests on other people's stuff and promoting their things. But so I always appreciate the shout out. But anybody wants to follow along with me, hit me on Instagram, you know, follow me along on stereo, and there should be some more stuff coming soon with some guys I'm doing some collaborative stuff with. So be on the lookout.
Thanks. And you got to do me a favor when you see Richard Cooper and call him Dickie Keeper for me, right? Because he called me Rocstedi one time, and you didn't answer my last message that came in. I really wanted to get him back.
Hey, come in. Hey,
Dickie
8 o'clock.
Keeper.
Come in Mondays, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock
I
p.m.
will. I'll tell him myself.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, for those that are listening as well, if you want to hit us up on obviously on Fireside under Rocstedi, this is my home to create content now, and they've been absolutely lovely to me in this short period of time already. You can find me on YouTube under the Rocstedi podcast, as well as Instagram, Twitter, Telegram, LinkedIn, and the list goes on. Just go to my YouTube channel and you'll be able to see all the different social medias. But Moff, thank you very much for your time, man. I really do appreciate it, and we will speak again soon.
Likewise, brother. Be good.
Cheers. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay,